It's the Mixed Martial Arts Hour with
The Mixed Martial Arts Hour back in your life on this Monday, May 2nd, 2016. Hello again, everyone. I'm Ariel Helwani inside our New York City studio. It is great to be here on a rainy Monday afternoon. I was just in Montreal less than 24 hours ago. I went to Montreal after last week's show. It was great to be home. I got to celebrate my son Oliver's 4th birthday. It was wonderful being there with friends and family. But now it is back to reality, back doing this show, and I am very happy to be here. And you know what I was happy about last week? It was a relatively quiet week in the world of MMA. Now, we're a little spoiled as far as those who cover the sport. There's always a lot going on, and lest we forget that the UFC 200 main event was officially announced in the weirdest way possible. It was announced early Wednesday morning on Good Morning America, of all places, and we'll talk about this later on in the show. I kind of feel like this was a bit of a fumble. I mean, how many people watching Good Morning America on that Wednesday morning are actually going to watch the pay-per-view, buy the pay-per-view on July 9th? How many people learned more about the UFC, got more into the UFC, learned more about Jon Jones and Daniel Cormier? To me, it is much more valuable to go on a Sports Center or any other kind of sports show to do it. But, it's a milestone for the UFC, and somewhat ironic that they did it on a platform like that after Conor McGregor, who's been tweeting up a storm this morning after Conor McGregor went on and said, less than 2 weeks ago that he was tired of doing the Tim and Susie show. That is the Tim and Susie show, with all due respect. I mean, did you watch it? And I love Good Morning America. Jesse Palmer, he's a great Canadian boy. But let's call it like we see it. Speaking of Conor, yes, I get a lot of people asking me, have you reached out to Conor McGregor? I mean, don't you know me by now? Of course I have. He put out a tweet just moments ago, call me no press, more press. He's not in the mood to talk to the press, and I get it. This story continues to evolve. It's become a saga. The UFC seems to have moved on. It's now Jon Jones versus Daniel Cormier. That's the new main event for UFC 200. And later on in the program, we are not joined this week by the great New York Rick. He is on, as I said last week, his 48th honeymoon. I'm being honest here. It is literally his third. Okay, I'm exaggerating when I say 48, but literally I think it's his third honeymoon since tying the knot to his beautiful bride. But this train continues to move along. In fact, all our ducks were in order. Everything was aligned. I mean, I was sitting here for 30 minutes doing nothing because everyone brought their A game. New York Rick being replaced in the back by Adam, who is killing him as far as prep is concerned. So I just want to put that out there. New York Rick, enjoy your time, but this train moves along without you. So you can have your Mai Tais on the beach in Honolulu, but we got a show to do, my friends, and we have a lot to discuss. So later on in the show, usually I go back and forth with New York Rick, questions, comments, blah, blah, blah. The man in the hat, Chuck Mindenhall, will stop by and he will shoot the breeze with me. By the way, the man in the hat responsible for this MMA Beat shirt that you see above my right shoulder. I'm told a handful are left. A tremendous cause. It is going to, all proceeds are going to the Hire Heroes Fund, which is headed up by the great Brian Stan. It, in short, ensures that veterans find work and are able to seamlessly transition back into regular life after serving this great country. So all proceeds going to Hire Heroes. Great foundation. We're happy to be a part of it and do a little tiny part. So there you have it, the MMA Beat shirt. You can get it over at MMAwarehouse.com. Okay, what are we talking about today? A lot going on. At 2:45, we're going to be joined by the Black Zillions boss, Glenn Robinson. Horrible news yesterday out of Florida. Jordan Parsons, young fighter for Bellator, involved in a hit-and-run accident, and it appears as though his career is over, but that's the least important of this news. He is in critical condition. Want to talk to Glenn Robinson about him, get an update on Jordan Parsons. We are definitely thinking about him as we do this show and wish him the very best. Joanne Calderwood will stop by. She got some good news last week. She's fighting Valérie Letourneau in Ottawa, June 18th, in the first official UFC women's flyweight fight. How about that? JoJo is back against Valérie Letourneau. Exciting. 205, speaking of women's MMA, Tiffany Van Soest. You may not be familiar with her if you're just an MMA fan, but she is a star when it comes to Muay Thai kickboxing. Recently signed with Glory and Invicta. Want to talk to her? Time Bomb in the house. 145, we'll talk to Neil Magny, coming off that big win over Hector Lombard. Recently signed a new contract with the UFC. So we'll talk to him. First time Neil Magny's on this program. 125, we're going to talk to Gunnar Nelson about his fight this Sunday in Rotterdam. He's fighting Albert Tumanov. But first, let us go to the Skype machine and welcome in our first guest of the day. He is coming off a big win at UFC 197 and got some great news on Friday because he is coming to LA. I should be exact. He is coming to Inglewood, California at UFC 199 June 4th. James Vick will be fighting Evan Dunham, replacing the injured Leo Santos. This man is blazing hot, and he actually called me out last week, and I loved it. James Vick joining us now on the program. James, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great, my friend. So, yes, I'm on my Twitter last week, and James Vick calls me out, says, Ariel, when am I going to get on this show? Is it only for the cool kids? Or I think you said, am I not part of the cool kids club? Something to that effect. Were you not feeling the love? Is that what's going on here?
I wasn't feeling it. I sensed a little when we did the interview after my last fight. I sensed maybe you were starting to get on the bandwagon, so I figured I'd call you out and give you an opportunity before it left town.
Okay, fair enough. Well, I got to say, I appreciated it, and here you are. So once again in MMA, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. I love that. So it's interesting because when we spoke after your win at UFC 197, you improved to 9-0. You were adamant you wanted Michael Chiesa next. You did not get him. You got Evan Dunham. Are you disappointed that you got Dunham?
I'm not at all. I knew that I wasn't getting Chiesa anyway, not the next fight, because he just come off such a big win over the number 8 ranked guy. So I just feel blessed that I got into the top 15. I win this fight. Now I'm taking his spot at number 14. Evan Dunham is a solid veteran. He's been around for a long time, and it's going to be a good fight. I definitely think I'm going to win. I think I'm going to win easily, and I'm moving up 15 spots in the rankings. So I'm not disappointed at all. I'm thrilled to death.
When you say easily, what comes to mind? How easy is this fight going to be in your opinion?
I mean, I'm obviously I'm going to try to finish him. I'm going to go for the finish. But if it doesn't present itself, I think that I'm going to win this thing handily, a decision. I think that all I got to do is basically the same thing I did my last fight, and he's not going to be able to take me down. He's not going to be able to hold me down. My jiu-jitsu is good enough that I'm not really worried about any of these guys taking me down, and I can get up, pretty much anytime I want. If you saw my last fight, the guy took me down, but all he was hold me. I landed more strikes from the bottom than he did from the top, and I think that there's no way this guy's going to outstrike me. So I see myself either winning an easy unanimous decision or catching him with something and getting a finish.
Now, the notable thing here for me is you're coming back a month and a half after your last fight at UFC 197. You have been, for lack of a better term, plagued by injuries. You take these long breaks, and sometimes you are forgotten about. Are you healthy? No problems after 197?
Yeah, absolutely, 100% healthy, and that was the deciding factor is I was healthy, and this is the career-changing opportunity for me to break into the top 15, and I got the email about 10 o'clock at night on Thursday, and I got back to him by Friday morning and told him I'll take the fight for sure, and everything worked out good, and I'm ready to go. I fought 15 minutes, 9 days ago. I'm in shape right now. I didn't get out of shape. I didn't really take any damage, so I'm back to training. I already did a 2-hour session this morning. I'm going to train again tonight, and then I'm here at my home gym in Fort Worth, Texas, Phalanx MMA, and then I'm heading back to Team Wood Irvin Wednesday in Maryland for the rest of my camp.
I noticed on April 28th, so that would be Thursday, yep, you tweeted Dana White. You said, thank you for everything you've done for me. Thank you what you did recently. Were you referring to getting that fight?
No, that was something else just something else. I don't want to talk about it.
Oh, that's no fun. You got to come on the show and talk about things. We can't keep secrets. We're buddies now.
Well, the UFC helped me out with a couple things. I mean, I don't know if I'm supposed to discuss it, so I don't want to. Okay. Sorry, man. I don't know if
Fair enough, but they're treating you well, basically. You're happy with them.
I'm happy as can be with the UFC right now. I'm living the dream. I feel so blessed.
So here we are, and like I said, a month and a half later, and you're getting this fight. Do you feel like you're finally over that hump? Because to me, again, it's amazing. You're 9-0. you've had 5 fights in the UFC, but you've been in the UFC for 3 years. And a lot of these tough live guys that, you were part of that season, they've come and gone. They've had, these runs. Kesa's doing great. Cruikshank's out of the UFC. I mean, but a lot, you look at that cast, a lot of them went on to the UFC. Some have had full careers in the UFC and have recently got cut, things like that. It feels like you never even got started in a weird way. Like you're the sort of the forgotten member of that cast. Do you feel like you're over that hump now? Like now your career is about to really start in the UFC? You're going to go on a run here?
For sure. My goal at the start of the year was to get 3 fights and to break into the top 10. So I think it's about to happen. I'm going to win. I'm going to win on June the 4th and be number 14. And then hopefully by the end of the year, I get another fight and get put in the top 10. And then from there, it's, I have another year in my mind. I have a goal within the next 2 years, I'll be a world champion. And everything's came together for me. It was, a lot of hard times with the injuries and stuff. But the good thing is I wasn't injured that whole time. I've had a lot of time in between fights, just a lot of bad timing with certain things where they kept me out of the ring longer too, where I would have smaller injuries come up after a surgery or something. I pulled my groin and then I had to, wait another 5-6 weeks. But I've progressed a lot in between the time period. I think a lot of the guys, a lot of them have had great careers in the UFC, but they've also been cut. It's almost like they try to take too many fights too soon. And I was building a for myself. And now I think my skill set is up to par enough. I can fight with anybody in the world and do good and win. So it was a blessing and a curse at the same time, but I'm ready to go now. And I think I can fight anybody in the world.
How frustrating was it to watch those guys that you were in the house with, get big fights on big stages? And, you're, like I said, you're not being discussed in the same conversation as them, even though your resume and your talent is very much on par, if not better than them.
It was frustrating. I mean, I was really close with a lot of guys in the house, so I was happy for them as well. I wasn't, I'm definitely not a hater or anything from that perspective. But it was frustrating knowing that, basically seeing all these guys, knowing that I could beat these guys, and I'm over here broke, working a full-time job half the time I'm in the UFC because I'm not healthy enough to fight and make money. So that, it was definitely frustrating, but I knew that, like we talked about in my interview after the fight, I believe it's my destiny to be a world champion, and my destiny can be delayed, but it can't be stopped.
What was that job?
Man, I was working. I was teaching private lessons. I coached at the UFC gym. I bounced at multiple clubs. I did a lot of club work where I was security and stuff. And it wasn't a bad job per se, but I don't want to be up till 3 a.m. doing a job I really don't want to do. I really just want to get up and practice full time. And now after I got that bonus last fight against Jake Matthews, I was able to. Now, granted, I didn't fight for a year, so I kind of basically went broke again because Australia took so much money in taxes out of my bonus. But I was able to train full time. I had the hip surgery, but I started boxing again after about a month and a half after hip surgery. And then I could train full time within about 4 months after that. So I still had a solid, probably 5-6 months of training when I wasn't fighting after the surgery. So I was training full time twice a day. I don't really just do camp. I train year round twice a day as much as I can. So I progressed my skill set a lot. So this last year has really helped me after the surgery because I had enough money where I didn't have to work and I just trained full time.
Now, when you say broke, I mean, how broke is broke? Are we talking like $0 here?
Not $0, but I mean, I didn't make much money. I didn't make as much money on the Australia fight as people think. They took $16,000 out of that bonus, and then my purse wasn't that great. Then I've recently got a better deal, but So, I made about 50 G's in that fight, but then you don't fight for a year straight, and then you got to pay taxes, you got to pay your coaches,
yeah,
you have to pay all this different stuff, and then 11 and a half months of no fighting, with no job. But I'm very frugal with my money. I just save, I'm real cheap, so I save my money. So it lasted me, it lasted me the whole year. I mean, I wasn't completely broke, but I was down to,
right.
I needed to fight again. Sure, if not, I was going to end up having to go back to work.
So back in the day when I used to frequent the clubs, I used to be a big club goer, believe it or not. The bouncers were like these big roided up guys. You don't look like those guys. Do people try to step to you and then find out shortly that you're a UFC fighter and you can kick their ass with like one punch? Does that ever happen? Because you look unassuming at first glance, right?
Yeah, for sure. One thing helps me is I am skinny, but I'm tall. I'm 6'3", so that helps
right.
somewhat. But yeah, I've had a lot of rough bouts and stories. Usually it's kind of funny because usually when if I'm taking someone out from inside the club, I always go for the neck. I grab the neck and I squeeze it a little until they stop fighting. And then when they stop fighting, I'll drag them out. You know, I'll go rear naked and I'll switch it to the side headlock.
Wow.
The bulldog choke. And then I'll take them out, or we get outside. A lot of the times the clubs I worked at, once we got them outside, a couple guys, I try not to hit them, you know, directly if it came to that, because, you know, you don't want to break your hands, you don't want lawsuits. So it's kind of funny, but I would leg kick a lot of people. I've leg kicked several people.
Oh.
You know, it usually takes one leg kick and it's over, because, you know, who's used to getting kicked in the thigh if they're a regular person, you know?
Wow.
And we also had pepper spray. So once we got them outside, if they just kept talking and then tried to run up on us, we'd mace them also. It was a pretty fun job, actually.
Well, but this is like this. I honestly, I was kind of joking when I asked you this. So is this like in a bad part of town that you have to resort to leg kicking people and stuff?
Well, it was one of the. It's here in Fort Worth. It was one of the more popular. The recent spot I worked. Well, the spot I worked at. Recent spot I worked at had cops on the weekends when I worked, so that was pretty simple. There was nothing there.
Okay.
But the one before that I worked at a strip club for about 4 years.
Wow.
And, you know, strip club, all you get is just, you know, the low end trash people that looking for cheap beers, and they're going in there trying to talk to girls, and when that doesn't work out for them, they resort to wanting to fight somebody. So
Jeez.
it's always like that. And then you get bartenders who are getting tipped good money, so they keep over serving these people and they get drunk, and you have to, you know, sometimes you got to do what you got to do.
What a mess. Any of these patrons recognize you from the reality show or the UFC, or was this before the UFC?
Oh yeah, no, a lot of them recognize me, especially from the Ultimate Fighter, because I worked at this particular club for about 4 years off and on, and I had to deal with them where I would leave and go to camp for 2 months, and they you know, they would support me and let me go, and then I would come back and be able to get on the schedule again full time, because I was best friends with the general manager there at the time, and I actually lived with him for like a year, so I was like a second son to him.
Oh.
So he was going to let me come and go whenever I wanted and work as many hours as I wanted, or as few as I wanted, as I needed to for money and stuff. And I was for the people who were regulars there, I was well known and no one really messed with me. But you'd always have guys, you know, coming from out of town, you know, and they'd be drunk, and we'd have to handle up something.
I feel like some of the people listening to this show would say, this is a dream job. You get to hang out there every night. You get to see all of these women and stuff. Is that not the case? Because I feel like a lot of people would actually think that it's a fun job to have.
It was fun. It was fun. When I was single, it was real fun. And, you know, but at the same time, you're just around a bunch of people that you're nothing like. Like, I don't drink. I drink like twice a year. I don't party. I don't stay out late. I don't go to clubs on the week. You know, so I was there strictly for money. And then, you know, there was, you know, benefits of working there, obviously. But at the same time, it got old. You know, it got old. Like, you know, you're in a club and you see a half naked woman. You know, if you go there once every 6 months, it's cool. But you go there every day, you just kind of get, you know, just. I get so used to it, it's kind of pointless. It's not even flattering anymore. Yes,
I can understand that. I just saw you were on a fishing trip, and this is a secret. This is a secret interest of mine. I've never gone fishing, but I want to go fishing. Perhaps we can go sometime. And I saw your pictures on your social media. You can see Twitter handle right over there, James Vick MMA. Those are some big ass fishes that you guys got. I think you were with your girlfriend, right? On this trip, or And what kind of fishes were those? Those were gigantic. What kind of fish was that?
They were catfish. We caught them out of the lake. We put them. How we do it? You know, I'm a country dude. We put trot lines out. So you connect. Basically, how we do it is you have trees coming up out of the water in lakes and stuff, and you'll tie a line to the water right below the bottom of the water line.
Okay.
On the tree, run the line. You'll run the line all the way across, and then you'll drop hooks. You put a string about that long, about a foot long, 2 foot long, and you'll run it down and you'll put a hook at the end of it. And by law, you put the hooks 3 foot apart. So you'll have this long line and you'll have hooks coming down it. And then you put a weight on it and you sink it to the bottom of the lake. And then you bait the hooks, and then you run your lines, 2 or 3 times a day, morning and the evening, and sometimes midday, depending on how hot the weather is. But the weather's pretty good in Texas, where it's not too hot, but it's not too cold right now. So it's really a good time to fish. And you go out there, you set the line, you bait the line, and then you come back a few hours later and you'll run the line. You go take someone in the boat, 2 people, one of the guy lifts the line, and 2 people will lift the line up, and you catch a fish on the line, you throw it in the boat, take it off, and then you rebait the hook. And then at the end, and you say you may have like 10 or 20 hooks going down from here. So fishing with one pole, which we do that also. Fishing on one pole, you if you have 2 or 3, say you have 3 lines out and you have 20 hooks on each line, you have 60 hooks to catch fish on. So it's a good system. We caught probably a good. I was out there only a day and a half because I took the fight and had to come back. I was planning on staying for a whole week.
Oh.
My dad and my brother are still out there, but we caught about 40 keepers, and then we skin them all up, hang them in a tree, we skin them, and then batter them up in cornmeal and fry them and have a big fish fry.
Wow. What a foreign world to me. Holy moly. I've never experienced anything like that, but it sounds like a great time. That's amazing. Well done. Yeah, those were gigantic fish. I asked you about this after the fight, and so forgive me for asking again, but I think, on a different stage here, obviously very interesting and important to discuss, because I remember when you were tweeting about your sister and putting out the GoFund page. She is so explain to people what she battled through and how she's doing now, because it did seem, at least from an outsider, that obviously pretty scary and serious stuff.
Yes, sir. She had a tumor right here behind her skull that had completely eaten her sinus cavity, and it was going down to her eyes, and they said it was going to make her blind if she didn't get it taken out like ASAP.
Wow.
And she had insurance, but she had to pay like a huge deductible because the surgery was expensive, because they had to fly in a doctor all the way from like it was either from like Florida or maybe even a foreign country, I don't remember, because she had gotten it done here in Dallas. And the neurologist and stuff, I guess that's what it's called with the brain or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't didn't want to do the surgery because they were scared that there was complications where they would mess her brain up, because they basically it had completely eaten her sinus cavity and her skull. It was eroding through the bone, like her bone right here in the forehead was so thin, like you could probably punched it and it would have caved in. It was that soft. And so they went in and they had to cut a hole out all in there. They scalped her from here. They peeled the skin down. They had to cut all that old rotting, decaying bone out. They put a titanium plate in there. They cleaned the tumor completely out, and they had her on some like strong medicine, like a lot of strong stuff to make sure nothing would grow back. And they had her, after the surgery, she had to stay in the hospital for a few days. Then they had her go home for a couple weeks. They had her come back, and then they had her do a checkup after that for like every 2 months for like 6 months. And now it's been in, I guess, in July, I think maybe July or June or August, it'll be a year. And she still has real bad headaches and stuff, because the way they had to cut her skull and cut through her skin and stuff, it's like a lot of, I guess, tissue damage and stuff. And there's a lot of it's a big scar there, and it pulled it apart, and then they had to pull it back together, and she still feels like nerve and tissue damage there.
Wow.
But besides that, they said that'll eventually go away. It may take a year or two for it to go away, but now it's all good, and it's gone, and there hasn't been any signs of it coming back or anything in the last 10 months or however long it's been.
How old is she?
She's 32.
32.
She has 4 kids.
Wow.
And it's rough.
From what I understand, she was at your fight, right? At 197?
Well, no, I thought she was at my fight when I was talking, because she was supposed to come in I didn't get to talk to my family. I was texting them back and forth, but I was, busy. So I thought she was supposed to come in the last minute. She couldn't. She realized she couldn't afford to come, basically, because it was, too far or whatever. Okay. I had a free ticket for her, but because she has 4 kids, and
yeah.
So she, she's married and everything. Her and her husband work, but she, they have 4 kids. You got to save money.
Of course.
So the last minute she didn't end up coming. So.
But she's able to. She's able to live a normal life. Like she's fine as far as like living her life and going about her daily stuff, right?
Yes, sir. She's doing 100% recovery now.
That is amazing. Wow. Well, I wish her all the best. That's an unbelievable thing, and I can't imagine what kind of stress that was for everyone involved, including her. That's a pretty incredible story. Okay, so let us end on this. You said that you really wanted that case to fight. You want him. That's the one you want. If you get through Evan Dunham and they say let's just play this game, Chiesa next or a title shot, which do you take?
Oh, come on, man.
Okay, so
I'm gonna take the take the title, and then I give him a title shot after.
Okay, I just wanted to know how badly you wanted it.
I want it so bad, though. I mean, that's the only other fight that I would choose over him is a title fight for sure. But I doubt after being ranked 14 when I win this fight, I doubt that I'm getting a title shot.
Sure. I just like playing those hypotheticals. You know what I mean?
but hey, stranger things have happened. So
You still there? Oh, you swapped on us, but I still see you.
see me?
Yeah, I see you, even though you're there you are. But I got to think, I mean, you beat Evan Dunham. You're right there. And I mean, I don't think he's too far away from you. So that might be the time to get on the mic and formally call this guy out.
Oh, I was going to, and they didn't give me an interview after my last fight.
Weak. What's up with that?
I don't know. But then I watched the card when I got home, and I guess because all the prelims were decisions, nobody got an interview. So I felt a little better about that.
Yeah. What a card that is. Did you see that card, 199? It's a tremendous card.
Yeah, I saw that. My boy Dominic Cruz is fighting on there.
That's right.
So I'm happy about that.
Your old coach. So you leave Texas and then you're going to Maryland to stay with your coach Lloyd Irvin?
Yeah, yes, sir. I'm gonna stay there until basically, until we leave to head to LA.
Okay. Well, I look forward to it, man. Welcome to the show for the first time, this particular show. Great to have you on. Thank you for calling me out. I respect that very much, and love the fact that you're getting right back in there and fighting again at UFC 199 against Evan Dunham. What a fight that is. I know a lot of your fans are excited as well, so wish you the best.
I hope my interview turned out decent. There was some when I tweeted that, some clown on Twitter was like, "Oh, you're not charismatic enough to be on air at the Hawaii show." Get
out of here. Don't listen to those people. You actually kind of remind me. You're like a more charismatic version of Donald Cerrone with that accent of yours. You ever get that?
I'm country, but I'm not a cowboy. I've never worn a cowboy hat. I really don't know how to ride a horse either. We were too poor to have horses growing up.
Don't tell him I said that either. Appreciate the time, James. All the best to you, and we'll see you out there in Inglewood, June 4th.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Appreciate it.
There he is, James Vick. Amazing. 9-0 in the UFC. 9-0 overall, and he is 5-0 in the UFC. And people don't talk about him enough. It really is amazing. Impressive wins over Ramsey Nijem, Nick Hine, Jake Matthews. Really impressive run thus far in the UFC, but because he has been so inactive and decimated by injuries, plagued by injuries, he has kind of fallen out of the spotlight. But here he is. Picked up a win last week, 9 or so days ago, and returning June 4th. And look at that card. Look at UFC 199. It is a very strong card, an amazing card. Okay, the UFC is back this Sunday. They have also a very good card in Rotterdam. They'll be making their debut in Rotterdam, the Netherlands. The main event, of course, is Andrei Arlovski versus Alistair Overeem, teammate versus teammate. Antonio Bigfoot Silva versus Stefan Struve is also on that card. A very interesting fight on that card, in my opinion, is one taking place in the welterweight division. Albert Tumanov going up against Gunnar Nelson. What a great fight that is. And we are being joined by Gunni himself right now. He is on the phone. Gunnar, how are you?
Very good, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for joining us. Okay, so let's start with the big news right off the top. I know a lot of people ask you about this, but I have to ask you right off the top. Very, very pressing matter. What the heck is going on with that tree outside of your house? Who cut it? Who's responsible for this tree? You were expecting that, right?
Yeah, I would have to take responsibility for that tree. Although I did not chop it down myself. I had it chopped down.
Oh, so you hired someone to chop this tree?
Yeah.
For those,
actually, I used to work for the guy chopping down trees. Funny enough.
Used to work for the. Okay, so this.
Yeah, he came.
The story is your neighbor had a tree that I guess was bothering you, and then you decided to cut it down, and now he's mad at you. Is that the story? This is all over the news. If someone Googles you, tons of media outlets have written about this story in Iceland. This is big news over there, apparently. This tree.
Yeah, it's a pretty ordinary thing to chop down these type of trees because their roots ruin all the pipes and they're really a mess in gardens where there's houses and stuff. And there was three trees, the same type of tree, and two were in my garden, and then one was just in his. And I rang him like 4 months before I'd done it, and it was my understanding that it would be okay that I took it if I just paid for it, so he didn't have to pay for it. But then I took it, and he went, he went to the papers, and I think he's gonna press charges, or that's what he says. I don't know. It's a bit weird, to be honest.
It is a bit weird. I couldn't believe it when I Googled you this morning. I saw tons of articles about you in this tree. At first, I thought it was a joke, but it's good. You're in Dublin now, so you've escaped the media frenzy surrounding this tree, right?
Yeah. I had to leave the country, you know. No, I'm just joking.
Of course. So you returned to action on Sunday. You have this fight against Albert Tumanov. Of course, the last time we saw you was in December. So you took a bit of a break there after the Damian Maia fight, which obviously didn't go your way. Was that your plan? Did you just want to take a break from fighting after that fight?
Yeah, I think it's good to, you know, after a fight like that, there's a lot to learn from, and to take a little break and train. And it was over Christmas as well and stuff, so I got to spend some time at home with my family. And actually, this whole camp was pretty much in Iceland, so that was really good, you know.
So that fight was one. I mean, people were so looking forward to the fight. It was a grappler's fan's dream to see you two in there, sort of like the old generation and the new generation. And of course, it did not go your way at all. Looking back, I mean, can you pinpoint what went wrong? Like, what were the lessons that you took out of that experience against Damian?
I mean, there's a lot of little lessons there, but the big one for me, like I don't know. I just did not feel myself, you know. However, if it was his pressure or whatever, I just did not feel good in this fight. I honestly don't feel like I showed up and I performed as I can, you know. But yes, there's a lot of little lessons, you know. There's a lot of little tactical mistakes, I believe, more than technical, you know.
Is it possible that you overestimated him? That maybe you thought, or I should say, underestimated. Excuse me, like that he ended up being tougher than you thought he would be.
He was definitely tough, and I knew he was going to be tough. And I don't think I underestimated him. I thought I always knew he was going to be really good on the ground. And I've faced ground fighters like this before. Maybe not in MMA, not at his level, but I've been on the ground and grappled with really good grapplers before, and yeah, it's kind of hard to explain, but I just for some reason I just did not feel myself in this fight. I really felt like I honestly just got tired after like 2 minutes of the very first round.
Wow.
Just didn't feel like I was in my own body, to be honest.
Have you ever experienced anything like that before?
Yeah, similar. This was probably the worst case, and probably also because of the level of his ground game. It just highlighted everything, you know. But yeah, sometimes I've felt this, and it's something that I've been working on, you know.
It was, you know, I've read that you've said this in a couple of interviews that you didn't feel like yourself. Was it just that morning, that day in the locker room, or is that how you were feeling all week in Las Vegas leading up to the fight? Was something just off?
Not the whole week at all. It just kind of comes and goes on random times. It's like I don't even know how to explain it sometimes, but to be honest, I really don't even want to talk about it. I just want to leave it, you know.
Okay.
I'm just working on it, and that's it, you know. It's just one of these things that I just work on, and I have nothing to say about it, really, you know. I wouldn't really know where to start to talk about it. I guess maybe someday I will be able to explain it better, but as of now, I'm just focusing on what I need to be doing, and I feel a lot better, you know. I feel really good.
Fair enough, and I totally respect that. Just wondering, after the fight, did you consider not fighting anymore? Did that ever come into play? Did you consider walking away from the sport, or were you always coming back?
Yeah, no. I to be honest, I feel like I've never been better when I have good days and stuff, you know. It's like my skill level is really high, I feel, and I'm just like, everything seems to be coming together very nicely most of the time, and so I really love fighting. I love this game, and so I really want to carry on, and I never thought after this fight that I was going to quit. That was never my never a go-to thought. It's more, whatever happens to you, whatever you go through, you just have to overcome it. It's just your path, and embrace it and carry on.
So Tumenov, who you're fighting on Sunday, he's looked fantastic as of late in the UFC. He has won 5 in a row. I'm wondering if you've even paid attention to him. Are you the kind of guy that keeps an eye on the fighters who's sort of in your bracket as far as the rankings are concerned? Has he been on your radar? Did you know anything about him when they offered you him?
Yeah, I'd seen him. I had seen his fights, or a couple, or maybe 2 or 3 fights before I knew I was fighting him. Yeah, he looks good. He looks really good on the feet, especially. I haven't seen much of his ground game, but he looks tough and durable, and he's he's got a kind of a good pressure on the feet. Fast hands, good kicks. And so he's been looking really good against everyone.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, 100%. You mentioned that the majority of this camp has been in Iceland. Any particular reason for that? Of course, Iceland is, at least for people like myself living in New York, it feels like some fantasy world. Just like I can't even imagine what it's like. It just sounds so amazing to be there, but somewhat secluded. Yet, ironically, 2 weeks ago, because of everything going on with your teammate Conor McGregor, it felt like it was the center of the MMA universe. So, my question is, any particular reason why you were there for so long, that the whole camp or the majority of the camp was there? And B, did it sort of defeat the purpose once everyone was talking about Iceland and his situation, getting that sort of seclusion that you were hoping to get that you didn't end up getting, if you know what I'm saying?
No, I'm not exactly sure what you mean, but I really enjoyed training over there, and having the guys over is always great. And Conor was over for a week, and it just happened to be that week where everything went off. And yeah, I'm not sure what you're asking about that, if that was bothering me or not, or. Yeah,
well, exactly it. I mean, everyone was talking about Iceland. I know some media people flew there and trying to get interviews with him and with your father, Halli, as well. Did it start to feel like a lot of outside, distractions and things like that while you're trying to peak and get ready for your fight?
Oh, right, I get you. Yeah. So, no, it just felt like home to me. It didn't really bother me, all that stuff around Conor. I mean, I was following it, obviously, but yeah, to be honest, I've always kind of liked when the spotlight is on someone else.
Yeah.
While I'm working on my stuff, and obviously the spotlight is on Conor, so it suits me fine. I don't mind having the spotlight on me for a little while, but I wouldn't really. That's not why I'm here. That's not why I'm fighting in the UFC, and I wouldn't really be drawn to that.
Of course.
I like fighting. I like martial arts, and I wouldn't really be drawn to the spotlight, to be honest.
I'd imagine that's sort of the yin and yang that you and Conor present, right? Because you're so different from each other and opposites attract, right? I mean, you could not be more different than him as far as personality is concerned.
Yeah, well, we've heard that plenty of times.
Yes. Paddy Houlihan tweeted while you guys were there that it was the first time that the entire team was in Iceland, the SBG guys, since before the UFC Dublin show in July of 2014. Is that true? Is that the first time? And did it feel like old time? Like, did you like that, having the guys back? Did it feel sort of like you guys were starting all over again in a weird way?
Yeah, it was great having everybody over. I've obviously been over here
Sure.
a lot of times, and in Vegas and training with all the guys. So, but it was great having everybody in Iceland now, training with in our club with our outcome team, and the guys in the team obviously loved it as well. Yeah, it doesn't feel like that long, to be honest, because we used to train there all the time, and yeah, it's a really nice place to train. All the guys from Dublin even love to come over to Iceland. I had Carl Pendred over with Phil Mulpeter. They were just the two of them were over, stayed with me for 3 weeks before all the other guys showed up. So it's been a great camp, and all the guys love being over there and just focusing on training.
One thing I've always wanted to ask your father: how do you pronounce the name of your gym there in Iceland? It's hard for someone who doesn't speak the language. How do you pronounce that?
Mjolnir.
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 Okay.
Yeah. It's the hammer of Thor. It's like, have you seen Thor?
Yes, of course.
The Hollywood movies. Yeah, they pronounce it there decently, or they try to at least.
I won't try to do it again because I'm not that good. But I have seen some of the videos that your team has put out, in particular the Sorry video. You know the one I'm talking about? This has been a revelation to me.
No.
You don't know this video?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, I know you can't watch the show because you're on the phone, but I'll play a little bit of it here. What is going on here? Because this, to me, to see this side of you, and I got to say, your father is really the one wearing all black holding the sign if you're watching live. He's really the star of the show, in my opinion. But
he is the star, yeah.
What is going on here?
He is.
Where do you? There you are. There, wearing that yellow jacket. I mean, at least it looks like you. Maybe it's a doppelganger. Where did you guys come up with this? Why did you do this?
I've had that yellow jacket for a long time. It's
something else.
It's something else, right? We it's something we do for every annual party. We have this annual party beginning of the year usually, and it's. We just do a bunch of videos and remake some famous music videos. And last year, I think, or the year before, we did Chandelier.
Yes, we actually have that. We can play that as well. We have that clip. I queued that. That was a great one, too. I liked Sorry better, just for the record. But, yes, here's Chandelier. Keep going.
Yeah, they're just getting better and better now, more and more professional. I thought the Sorry video was was just on point.
Oh. Well, I mean, to say it's on point is almost an understatement. The production value was exquisite. Did you enjoy doing that? It was fun to see that side of you.
Oh yeah, it was just we done it in a day. We done it in like not even a full day. We put this white thing in the gym, in the main area, the training area in the gym, and we had our choreographer, a girl from the gym who's a dancer, just picked up all the moves, and we did our absolute best. We just had a great fun. People were just messing about there, and it's just it's just a fun day at the gym, really.
Oh, I love it.
And then, of course, very fun for everyone to see the video at the annual party.
Have you started to think, like, what's your dream one to play out? Anyone that comes to mind? Is there like a dream song video that you'd like to actually put together with the team? I know there's got to be one. Bjork?
Maybe not. No, I want to do something American, to be honest.
Okay.
Yeah, something like that. Oh, let me do some study on this, and I haven't really really thought too much about this, but
fair enough.
Maybe next time we'll talk. I'll have my preference on next year's video.
Okay. How's fatherhood? Your son is so cute. Wow, it's amazing to see him. He looks like a little.
Me too.
It looks a lot like you. I mean, with the blonde hair, it's great. How do you like fatherhood? Does this change how you approach your fights? Get ready for fights at all?
Well, yeah, you have to. Obviously, you want to spend as much time with him as you can, so you want to stay. You wouldn't be traveling as much as I used to, but it's something else. You wouldn't really know unless you've had kids. It gives you inspiration, and it really just lightens everything up. Whatever you're doing with him, and you see him learn, and he's at the age now. He's going to turn 2 now, at the end of May, and
wow,
he's climbing everywhere, jumping off everything. He's a little rascal, He won't stop, and it's just really every time I see him, he's got some new tricks. It's life,
Have you fed him the sheep's head yet? Has he tried that delicacy?
Yeah, he eats everything, all types of meats, and he's not. He's not He's not going to be vegetarian. I can tell you that. He you try to give him spinach or he'll eat carrots and bell peppers. That's about it, I think. He doesn't really dig the green stuff. Away.
You plop down the actual sheep's head in front of him, and he has no problem. He digs in.
Oh yeah, he loves lamb, and
wow.
Sheep says it makes no difference to him. I think
he's more of a man than I am already at less than 2 years old. Unbelievable. Okay, let me.
Have you been to Iceland?
I have never been, but I'd love to go one day. It looks exquisite. That water, it looks amazing.
You need to come over. I'll give you some sheep's head and shark meat and.
Well, I don't know about that.
Some of the good stuff, you know.
Let's not get crazy, but I do appreciate the invite, and I'd love to take you up on it. Okay, let me ask you about this. I'd be remiss if I don't ask you. Can you just offer your take on what's going on with your friend Connor? Do you think he fights again? What do you make of this craziness that he's not on the card? How crazy is this? Do you think it's absurd that we've gone to this point? What do you make of it all?
I think it kind of happened because he wanted to really focus on his training for this fight, and he felt like going over there and doing all this media stuff was going to take away from his training. And I think that's the reason why he kind of got enough. And enough of that, you know, and like he says he's done dancing, you know, like a monkey, and he wants to focus on training, and I understand that. And he felt like going over there was gonna come down on his training, so he decided to retire, and he was retired, and he said the same thing to us as everyone else. He wasn't like just putting it up and saying I'm retired, but really he wasn't. But he was going to retire, and then I think he kind of changed his mind, and I wanted to see if he could come back, or I don't know exactly how he was thinking it through. What exactly was the deal? But I believe he's definitely going to come back and fight. You know.
From your
when exactly, I'm not sure, but maybe 201 or 202. I would definitely put my money on that he'll be back, and you know, and I believe the money is there as well.
As a welterweight, would you prefer him to go down and fight at like 155 or 145, or do you think it's good for him to be fighting in your weight class?
I would have liked to see him in the 155 division.
Yeah.
You know, but it's really just up to him. Whatever he wants to do is I think that 145 is maybe he'll go. I know he can go back down and defend his title. No problem. But I just think he doesn't want to do that cut again. It's a nasty one, and I agree with him, and I understand that. So I think maybe I would like to see him going into the 155 divisions before, you know, going all the way up to the welterweight. But you know, he'll do whatever he feels like.
Well, one last thing on this, based on what you heard, did the UFC offer to take your gym in Iceland and replicate it in Las Vegas? Did you hear this at all? That they were going to take all the stuff and move it? Were you down with that? Did you even hear this? Because that's what was said before.
I heard something about this, but I don't think this was anything that made any sense. I don't think they're going to move our gym anywhere, and I don't really see the point even.
Sure. Yeah, I agree with that.
I did hear something like that, but not through something serious. Not like we run the gym, and I just saw it on some website, you know.
Okay, fair enough. Well, Gunnar, it's always great to catch up with you. I appreciate it. Good luck in the fight this Sunday. Good luck with that tree situation, back home. I hope it all works out. And always great to watch you fight. Always love watching you, and I think this is a fantastic fight. You versus Albert Tumanov this Sunday. It's live on Fox Sports 1 here in the United States. Appreciate some time on a Monday night in Ireland, Gunnar, and again, all the best to you. Good luck on Sunday.
Thanks very much. My pleasure. Thank you.
there he is. Gunnar Nelson stopping by. Great to talk to him. Looking forward to seeing how he rebounds Sunday afternoon here in the United States, Sunday night in Rotterdam. So we stick with the welterweight division. A man who is streaking as of late. He has won 10 of 11. Have wanted to get Neil Magny on this program for quite some time. Finally linked up with him. He's coming off a big win over Hector Lombard, and he is joining us right now on the phone. Neil, are you there?
Yes, I'm here, sir.
Great to have you on the show, finally. Wow. It has been a long time coming, and you are killing it, my man, coming off that big win over Hector Lombard. How many times have you watched that fight against Hector Lombard, honestly?
I've literally probably watched the highlights of it probably 100 times, not even kidding. Every time I open my social media, that video is playing over and over and over again. I just feel like it can't get old.
But wait a second. You say the highlights. Why not the full fight?
Well, we just haven't had a chance to get the full fight yet. I mean, it's not on UFC Fight Pass, so I just haven't even able to catch the highlights of it. I haven't been able to watch the full fight just yet.
When you going back to that moment, and even when you watch it, when you see how things went, because that was such a crazy fight. 10-8 first round, arguably for him, 10-8 second round for you. When you see the end of that second round and how long the referee, Steve Percival, let it go on, are you just astounded? I mean, how could that be? It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I was definitely a little bit frustrated with the referee at the time that he let the fight go on as long as he did in that second round. But I'm not sure what he was seeing or what made him allow it to go that long. But I just try to forget about it at the time and just kind of go right back to what I need to do to win the fight. It was kind of a hard position to put me in as well because Hector was in a position that he wasn't able to defend himself. And for me, being a martial artist, it wouldn't make sense for me to just keep pounding the guy out and give him like more damage than he needed to take. So it was kind of a weird balance where I was in a fight. I didn't want to give the guy more damage than he needed to, but yet I need to win the fight as well. So it did put me in a hard spot at the time.
Was that almost uncomfortable for you, you say, like as a martial artist, to be in that spot where you think and know, that the guy is out, doesn't need any more damage, yet the referee's not stopping it?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's one thing if the guy's fighting and getting out and improving his position, but it's something else when the guy's completely covering up and his ego's not letting him tap or something like that. I mean, he took literally 40 unanswered shots where he was just laying there hoping that the ref would call it so that he wouldn't have to be the one that quit. But for some reason, the ref just refused to do it.
Great. How close were you to being out in the first round?
I remember most of the first round. I mean, I don't think there was ever a point where I was completely out in the fight. Like I was very conscious at the time, so I can hear the ref say, "Neil, fight back. Neil, improve your position." I can hear him say, "Watch the back head" and things like that. So, though I was hurt, I don't think I was ever unconscious or out of it at any point.
Did you hear that Lombard is now going back to 185? Do you take some pride in the fact that you kicked him out of the welterweight division and moved him back up to 185?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, to be the first guy that beat Hector, or to finish Hector Lombard in his entire career and be the only guy to beat him at welterweight, it does feel pretty good to be the guy that literally beat him out of the division. I mean, that's something that I can brag about for years and years to come. So that part definitely felt good.
A nice feather in your cap, and you went to his adopted home country to win, to boot. So that's a great performance out of you. And the UFC has rewarded you, right? Because you just signed a new contract with them, correct?
Yeah, definitely. I didn't leave Australia before I had a new contract in the UFC, offered me another 4-fight deal and gave me quite a bit of a raise as well. So I've been truly grateful for that, and I just really appreciate the UFC recognizing my hard work and rewarding me for it. Now,
this is interesting because you had one fight left on your old contract, correct?
Yes.
And as you know, free agency, a hot topic in our sport these days, but you chose not to play out your contract and re-sign before the contract is up. Why did you decide to do that and not roll the dice like some others have?
I just know that UFC is where I want to be right now. I mean, I set out to accomplish a lot of things UFC, and I feel like I haven't accomplished those things yet. So at the time, it just wasn't. I didn't feel it necessary to play the open market or free agency at all and check out the waters elsewhere. I just feel like I have a lot of things to achieve in the UFC, and that's where I need to be right now in order to do so.
Now, like I said, you've won 10 of 11. You're streaking. You've had some big wins, in particular as of late, Lombard, Gastelum, Eric Silva. And on this show, I don't know if you know this, but at times I've been a little critical of you. I have no problem saying this because I feel like you've been winning in such impressive fashion against big names, and then they put the mic in front of you, and you don't ask for anyone, you don't call anyone out. You're just too nice. But it seems like things are changing a little bit because I noticed on social media you were calling out Nate Diaz. You actually were calling someone out. You did this recently, right? That wasn't an imposter. That was you, correct?
Yeah, that was definitely me. I mean, the opportunity came up where I saw Conor McGregor pull out of the fight, and Nate Diaz didn't have an opponent at the time. And I just thought it would be a great thing for me. I mean, currently in the welterweight division, everyone who's ranked above me is already preoccupied with fights, things like that. So in my mind, I thought, why not take the fight against Nate Diaz? I mean, it'll be a huge opportunity for me to keep relevant, give an impressive performance for the fans, and just stay relevant in the sport.
You always say, you'll take whoever the UFC gives you. Why call them out now? Why did you change your tune? Have you recognized that calling people out is actually beneficial to your career?
It maybe or may not be, but honestly at the time I just saw an opportunity and I went for it. The opportunity to fight on UFC 200 would have been huge. Just fight a guy like Nate Diaz coming off an impressive win over Conor McGregor would have been huge for my career. So maybe at the time I just saw the opportunity. It wasn't necessarily anything personal against Nate Diaz in particular, but the opportunity that fighting him would have brought, especially at UFC 200.
So as we sit here and speak on this Monday afternoon, Nate doesn't have a fight. Conor's not on the card. Any chance? I mean, have you asked the UFC? I know, Dana loves you. He talks about you all the time. Do you feel like you might actually get this fight?
I'm not sure if I'm going to get it or not, but I definitely did put it out there. Let the UFC know that I'm definitely interested in it, and I'm back in the gym training. So if that's the fight they want to put together, I'll gladly accept it, and I was ready to go. I'm not sure what the plans are with Nate Diaz. I'm not sure what Nate Diaz plans to do as far as him sitting out and wait for Conor McGregor to come back and then take a fight against him. So it's all in the air right now. I mean, one thing I don't like is sitting on the bench not having a fight. So I just thought it would be better for me to be proactive and call someone out and get back on the card. Yeah,
because in 2014, you tied the record for 5 fights in 1 calendar year. Clearly, you are an active guy. You like to get out there. Is that the dream fight for you right now? I mean, styles-wise, that is a beautiful fight. I mean, just given, your height and reach and his and just the way you fight and the way he fights, I have a hard time envisioning that being a bad fight. Is that the dream fight for you right now, a fight against Nate at 170?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I feel like that's the fight that would be great for my career right now. I feel like that's a fight that would be great for the fans as well. I mean, I don't think he or I would hold back in that fight. It would just be an all-out war where the fans get a fight they can really appreciate. And it might be along with the fight like Stephen Bonner and Forrest Griffin. I mean, I'm just sure that both will leave it all in that octagon and then just go to war. So I don't see anything bad coming about with that fight.
At this point, though, if you don't get that, if he goes back to 155 and does his thing there, how far away? I can't imagine that you're more than 1 fight away from being in that title talk, if not already, right? I mean, beating Lombard, you see who's ahead of you, and I know the Maia fight still kind of sticks out, but you have to be in that discussion, don't you think?
Yeah, I definitely feel I'm right there. I mean, one of the biggest things for me, I think I've seen me over top to get that title shot is just getting to the point that the fans want to see it more than anything else. I mean, I'm pretty sure if I put on another performance, another perfect performance, or the fans like, oh man, Neil Magny's amazing. I want to see this guy fight for a title. That's what's going to give me that title shot. And I'm definitely not going to get it by sitting on the couch waiting the next 3-4 months and seeing how things play out. I mean, Carlos Khan is the perfect example of that. I mean, he was out for a year. He came back, fought the number 13 ranked guy, beat him pretty good, and got a title shot right out there. And so at this point, I realize that the numbers don't mean everything, and it's all about who the fans want to see fight. So
what do you make of like what Tyron Woodley has done, sort of waiting for that fight? It might work out for him, it might not. As someone in the division who likes to be active, what do you make of that situation?
I feel like he's definitely rolling the dice. I mean, I know at the time it was something that Dana White promised him, but at the same time, I'm pretty sure that was just Dana White speaking out of emotion at the time, depending on what he was feeling. I mean, on paper or in reality, it doesn't make much sense that he would get a title shot after sitting out for a year because the opponent didn't make weight. I mean, excuse me. In the fight business, I mean, the fight's not official until it actually happens. You can't just take into account like, oh, this guy didn't make weight. That means I can make the shot because that counts as a win. I mean, anything that happens in the fight business and to take that as a win and give a guy a title shot off it, I don't necessarily agree with it. But if he gets it, good for him. Hopefully it works out for him. But in my opinion, I don't think that's how it should work out.
I remember seeing, I think I've talked about this on this show. I remember seeing you walking down the street in Rio after UFC 163, the Sunday after that fight. You had just lost to Sergio Moraes in the first round. And it was clear you were bummed. I don't know if you remember that. You were just kind of walking with your head down. And then you came back, and I just, I thought like, he's obviously bummed that you fly all the way to Rio and it sucks to lose. You come back and you lose to Seth Baczynski, and now here you are staring at a 2-fight losing streak. Did you think, at that time, 3 or so years ago, guys were getting cut for 2-fight losing streaks. Did you think after that Baczynski fight that you were done in the UFC? Were you worried about that?
Yeah, I was 1% worried about it, man. I even went as far as taking the Denver police exam because I thought my career as a UFC fighter was over after that loss. I mean,
Wow.
it definitely took some time praying on it and seeing what was next for me and things like that. But after that second loss, I honestly thought that my time to see had come to an end. I mean, to lose first round and lose to a guy who's, I think at the time, on a 2-fight losing streak, it just didn't sit well with in my eyes with the UFC. So I thought for sure, like, all right, that was it. You came out, you tried. Didn't make the cut. Good luck next time. That's why I thought it was over at that point.
So, and were you ready to stop fighting?
I was at the time. I mean, I just put so much into my career that I was ready to get things back in order. I mean, I left my home in Chicago. I walked away from the police academy in Chicago. I left the military. I left all these things behind in order to pursue my career in MMA. And when it wasn't working out for me, I just thought that I just hit that wall, and that was as far as I can go. So I was in a position where I need to get my life in order first, and then get back to fighting later. So those two losses in a row kind of put me in a position where it's like, all right, kind of reprioritize what's important in your life and where is it you're trying to go, and then worry about fighting later.
Do you remember what it was like when you found out that you weren't getting cut and that you were going to get a third crack at this?
Oh, just pure excitement. I was like, all right, here we go. Here's that third opportunity to make the best of it. I mean, I remember walking into the gym, smiling ear to ear, telling my coach, like, hey, I got to fight. I'm going back in, coach. And they were all just excited as I was to be able to go in there and get one more shot.
And then, of course, you proceed to win 7 in a row. Like I said, you had that one fight against Magny, then you've now won 3 in a row. What the heck changed? Like, where did the guy who lost 2 in a row go, and how did you turn into this killer?
I think the biggest part was just relying more on my faith and relying that no matter what happens, where I go, God's going to provide for me, and just letting go of the things that I couldn't control. I mean, whether or not I get cut in UFC, no big deal. My life still goes on. Whether or not I put on a great performance, whatever, my life still goes on. So just kind of realizing that it's not the end of the day when I lose a fight or whatever, and just letting go of the things I couldn't control kind of helped me focus on more things I could control, which is my training and my mindset when I go out there and try to fight.
So back in the day, you used to worry a lot about that? Like, you used to make mountains out of molehills? Like, you used to focus so much on the result and your career in the UFC, and then you just decided to let it go?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, even especially after losing that fight, I was like, oh man, here I am with bills stacking up and all these other things and I would worry about, like, oh man, how am I going to make it through? How am I going to make it to my next fight and all these other things? And once I quit worrying about the what ifs and focus on it now, it made a huge difference. How
often do you think about that Maya fight?
I think about it all the time. I mean, honestly, I don't fault Maya for it. It was almost like I know it sounds cliche when guys say that you learn more from a loss than a win, but in that fight, I feel like that's exactly what it was. I mean, I was at a point where, if you heard my interviews, I was like, oh man, I feel good right now. I won 7 fights in a row. There's no way this man who's 10 years old is going to beat me, all this other stuff, and just kind of lost track of where I was going and what got me on that 7-fight win streak to begin with. So I feel like that loss against Dave Maya was definitely humbling and exactly what I needed at the time to give me the motivation and that drive to carry on after him.
So you I mean, it's funny because I just spoke to Gunnar Nelson, who had the same kind of experience with Maya. Did you kind of think that, like, the fact that he's fighting in a couple of weeks against Matt Brown, and he's on the cusp of a title shot as well, like, did you think that this guy was kind of at the end of the road of his career, and he was a little over the hill? It's fair to say you were kind of underestimating him going into that fight?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, one of the things that made me underestimate him for sure was the 10-year age difference. I mean, I was 10 years younger than he was. He was in a lot of wars in the UFC and things like that. So I for sure thought that my youth was gonna play a huge factor in the fight. But when I went out there, that clearly wasn't the issue at all. I mean, he came 100% prepared and knew exactly what he had to do, and did just that.
You fought Brazilians like Maya in Brazil. You went to Mexico to fight Kelvin Gastelum, Lombard in Australia. And from what you're born in Brooklyn, right? Brooklyn, New York?
Yeah, I was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York.
When did you leave Brooklyn?
I left Brooklyn when right before I started high school. So I went to high school in Chicago and went to college in Southern Illinois.
Which part of Brooklyn?
So I grew up around. I did a lot of moving around when I lived in Brooklyn. My mom was a single mom, so I literally changed schools every single year. So I went from Flatbush to Canarsie to Bushwick, just bouncing all over the place. Then my mom was able to find a place for us to stay.
So, I mean, how awesome! I mean, that card in November in New York. Wouldn't that be something? Is that the dream, to come back to New York and fight at MSG?
Amazing. Yeah, I mean, with all my family still being in New York City, that'd be an amazing fight for me. I mean, just fighting this Madison Gun alone, just going out there and knowing that guys like Mike Tyson have fought there and all these other things. I mean, to be able to go to Madison Square Garden and fight there, that'd be great. That'd be like a dream come true for me.
I feel like you've done them so many solids, the UFC. They owe you this one. Brooklyn boy to fight. Have you told Dana White this? You stepped up for them on short notice. They owe you this one, right?
I haven't spoken to Dana White about it just yet. I'm planning on being in UFC 200 out in Vegas that week, and that was a conversation I was waiting to have face-to-face. Like, hey, I've been there for you guys time and time again, just giving up short notice across the world, not just the country, but across the world, fighting main events, co-main events, whatever it may be. This is one thing I would truly ask for, just to get the opportunity to fight on that inaugural time in Madison Square Garden. It's the first time ever. It's going to be a history make an event. I just want to take part in it. So that's just one of the questions I'll wait to ask face to face with him.
That's a smart move, and I think you deserve it. By the way, part of that maturation that you talked about after the Maia fight, I love that you went on Twitter and actually asked him if you can attend one of his seminars in Las Vegas, I believe it was, right? Would the old Neil Magny not have done that?
Probably not. My ego probably would have kept me from doing so. But after that loss, I look at it one of two ways. I can look at it as like, oh, whatever. I lost to one of the best jiu-jitsu guys in the world and just leave it at that. Or I can pick that guy's brain and it's like, hey, how did you beat me the way you did, and try to apply it to my fights later on. And that's exactly what I did. I mean, he took some time out of his day to like give me a couple of pointers of things that I was missing in my fights, things like that. And I feel like he made a difference. So I'm truly grateful for the opportunity that he gave me, as far as like letting me come to his seminar and even taking the time out of his day to teach me a few things.
Did you get the impression that he was really telling you what was going on? Or, because there's a chance you might meet again at some point. So did you feel like he was holding back, or were you guys really, talking and sharing secrets and all that?
I feel like it was truly genuine. I mean, just from talking to him on the ride back to the hotel and everything, I mean, it just seemed like it was coming from a good place, and he had no reason to hold back that information. I mean, David Maia is a martial artist first and a fighter second. So for him, passing on the knowledge to a younger martial artist is what he's about. I mean, that's what a black belt does. So I feel like that's exactly what he was doing at the time.
That is amazing. I remember that vividly. You went on Twitter and you asked him, and I couldn't believe it. And that was how long after the fight was that? That was not that long after, right? Just a few weeks.
Yeah, I honestly believe it was that long after. I mean, I think it had to have been. It was a few months after, because I fought Gastelum and Eric Silva both, and that was one thing he pointed out to me was the back control position, where I was so eager to get some punches going that didn't necessarily control the position first, and just pointed out how I could control that position better, and it made a difference.
Amazing. I love that. Okay, so to wrap, you don't want to sit on the sidelines. You want to get back in there. You got the contract. You're living the life. Perfect world. You want to fight on one of those cards in July, or even before that? I mean, what's the perfect scenario now?
Perfect scenario for me is I'll get the fight in Chicago in July, turn around and fight in New York City later this year. I mean, that'll be the best way I see it going. If it happens, great. But the tough part now is once you climb the ranks, the selection as far as who you're able to fight becomes smaller and smaller. So I'm open to going as far back as the top 15 to get an opponent, just so I can fight on either or both, for that matter, in Chicago, and turn around and fight again in New York City.
Wow. That is amazing. What a breath of fresh air to hear that. Someone who's climbing the ranks, who's knocking on that door, and is willing to take an opponent who's lower ranked. That's amazing stuff. That July card is on Fox. That would be a great platform for you as well. Appreciate the time, Neil. Great to have you on the show for the first time, and looking forward to watching you climb that ladder. It's been a lot of fun thus far.
Awesome. Thank you. I really appreciate you having me on. All
right, there he is, Neil Magny, Brooklyn represent. Doing great things for that team out of Colorado, the Elevation Fight Team. He is on a roll. 3 big wins for Neil Magny. Appreciate his time very much. Okay, let us move along. Very much looking forward to our next guest as well. She is killing it in her own right. She is one of the best Muay Thai kickboxers in the world, and soon she will be transitioning over to mixed martial arts. She recently signed with Glory Kickboxing, Left Lion Fights, and also recently signed with Invicta. This is a fascinating story. We are being joined via the magic of Skype by Tiffany Van Soest. There she is, in her car, I believe. Tiffany, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Am I on? Do I hear some feedback there? Or is your radio on?
My Bluetooth is on here. Is that better?
I think that's better, yes. Oh, no, I still hear the feedback. We'll try to fight through it. Here we go. It's pretty much down now. Okay, that's good. Where are you, by the way? Are you in the parking lot or something?
Yeah, I'm running around doing my medicals and stuff for my fight, which is why I still have my glasses on because my pupils are dilated.
Oh, okay.
And I'm about to go get an MRI on my brain.
Oh.
So, busy day.
Well, I appreciate you squeezing us in. It's great to have you on the show. Okay, so a lot going on with you, and I kind of want to work chronologically here. You were killing it for line fights, and then out of nowhere, you went on social media and said that you had to sell one of your belts because they weren't paying you. Have they ever paid you?
Yeah, I was paid. The issue was resolved. Everything's all good, and I'm ready to just move forward from here.
Okay, but did you feel like they paid you because you went on social media, like you sort of forced their hand?
Yeah, you know what? Closed mouths don't get fed, and I was very, very patient, and there was a lot of unreturned correspondences, and I finally had to speak out, and unfortunately it came to that, but luckily we were able to resolve it. I was paid, and here I am now.
Did you actually sell the belt, or you didn't have to get to that point?
No, fortunately it didn't come to that.
And were you a free agent, or did they cut ties because they just couldn't afford you anymore?
That was my last fight with them was the last fight on my contract, so I was a free agent.
Did they even entertain the idea of bringing you back, or did you not even want to go back?
I didn't want to go back. I think it was just, at that point in time, I'd done everything that I could, everything that I wanted to do within Lion Fight, and all signs pointed to moving on. So sure enough.
And here you are, and things have worked out. Were you worried, though? Because Glory doesn't really have a women's division. So were you worried that there would not be that many options for you in female kickboxing?
MMA was kind of the plan after Lion Fight anyway. So I'd already planned to sign with an MMA promotion and to start doing that. But then we got the call from Glory, and they were interested. So as soon as we got that call, that was awesome.
Wow.
So I was really, really excited when that call came in. And so, of course, we wanted to sign with Glory. And then it just worked out that I was also able to sign with Invicta. So
are you just doing sort of feature fights for Glory, or are they going to build a whole division around you and have a belt and all that stuff?
From what I hear, it's looking like there might be a division built around this. So right now this would just be a feature fight, and then we'll see what happens after that. But, I mean, that would be great to be a Glory World Champion as well.
Were you prepared, though, to never, fight in kickboxing again and transition fully to mixed martial arts?
Yeah, it would come to that. I knew that Muay Thai and kickboxing was something I could probably always find my way back to eventually. But, yeah, I was prepared to fully just soak up the MMA scene.
Why leave something that you're so good at and go to this world that you're somewhat of a novice? I believe you're 1-1 in MMA. Is that accurate?
I have not had like a professional sanctioned MMA fight.
Okay, amateur? Is it fair to call it amateur?
Yeah, fair
okay.
to call it amateur.
Why would you leave? And you're relatively young. Why leave the world that you were dominating to go to a new world? Why did you want to do that?
I'm young, but I'm not that young. It's time to start making some money. I want to be able to set myself up for a very comfortable future. And unfortunately, it wasn't just one or two promotions. I mean, the sport of Muay Thai in America is just not that popular. And it was just getting kind of frustrating, a little disheartening. And I felt like I did as much as I could and stuck in as long as I could, but it was also time, and there's so much opportunity knocking, it was time to answer the door to that and finally do MMA.
You live now in Bali, correct?
Correct, yeah.
How big is female Muay Thai over there?
It's non-existent.
Non-existent. Jeez. So you had to make the move, and now you go to Invicta as well. Is it just a coincidence that Glory and Invicta are with Fight Pass, or did the UFC people help broker this deal as well?
I think it was just a coincidence that it worked out that way.
Okay. When are you? Because your Glory debut is May 13th in California.
Correct.
When's your Invicta debut?
It's looking like September 23rd.
Oh, look at this! Some breaking news. Who are you fighting?
I'm not sure. I'm
You-
not looking too far past 2 weeks from now.
That is true, right? But will you be fighting at 115 in MMA?
Yes.
Okay. How on a scale of 1 to 10, how comfortable are you on the ground these days?
Getting there. Every day is a new challenge and a new adventure working on the ground, but I'm confident in my instructors, my coaches, and confident that when it does time to hit the ground in the cage, that I'll be fully prepared.
When you do make your MMA debut officially for Invicta, will you be training out of Bali still, or are you going to come to the United States?
Both. I'll be doing the majority of my training camp in Bali at Bali Muay Thai and MMA, and then haven't decided on a camp here in the States yet. Going to be doing a little bit of training around. I've always been based out of San Diego, so got options there, but got options in Vegas as well. And so after this fight, maybe I'll take a little bit of time, check out a few different places to train, and then make my decision based off of that.
Did you ever consider trying out for The Ultimate Fighter? I know they just featured the strawweights. Was that a consideration for you to go straight into the UFC?
No, you couldn't pay me enough money to be in that house and to do that.
Why not? You're not a fan of the reality show?
Absolutely not. No.
Oh, okay. You don't strike me as the type that would be a fan, to be honest, after talking to you for a little bit. Part of the interest in coming to MMA, was that because you saw, how big Ronda has gotten and Miesha Tate and these people? Do you feel like that's just smart? Like, if Muay Thai was paying you and you were fine there, would you have just stayed there? But because these women are becoming megastars, is that part of the reason why you want to do it as well?
No, it's not really. It's about the money a little bit, but for the most part, if Muay Thai paid what MMA pays, then I'd be happy doing that forever. But for the entire length of my Muay Thai career, people have been asking me, when are you going to do MMA? Are you going to transition to MMA? And I've always been like, no, I'll wait. No, I'm really happy doing Muay Thai. But it finally just got to a point where I'm like, you know what? I got to at least give it a shot. I'm young enough. I've got the skills enough. I've got the resources. So, I don't want to think what if. I don't want to spend my whole life wondering, like, what if I did do MMA? So I felt like, I had won a few titles in Muay Thai, a few different weight classes. I felt like I've done a lot for the sport, done a lot for myself. I'm proud of what I've done in Muay Thai, and so I figured, why not pursue something else? Why not give it a shot and at least see how it goes?
Yeah, I love it. I think you're the perfect fighter for Invicta because you have a name, you have a very loyal following. You coming over there is a big event, so I think it makes a lot of sense for them. Now, correct me if I'm wrong here. You have a background in karate. You used to practice karate as a youngster, and you were only allowed to start fighting once you turned 18. Your parents didn't allow you to actually compete. Is that accurate?
Yeah, pretty much. I competed in karate tournaments, which is not full contact. It's, forms and point sparring. When I started learning Muay Thai at the age of about 16, I had expressed interest in, taking a fight, and they were just not having it. And so I figured, they wouldn't really have any say once I was 18 and I could sign my own release.
Wow.
So that's what happened.
What a rebel. Were they pissed at you when you did this?
Not really mad. They're more nervous than anything. Kind of like, can't believe you're doing this, and it's just one, right? And I figured, yeah, because my intention really was I wanted to do it just to see if I could do it, because I was tired of point sparring from karate, light to no contact. I wanted to try just one full contact fight. I just wanted to try one Muay Thai fight, and one turned into 2, turned into 3 and 4, and then that was that.
Now here you are 9 years later, and this is your career. What did you want to do? Like, did you even have any aspirations? Like, what do you think Tiffany would be doing with her life if you didn't find this?
Oh man, the plan was to be like a strength and conditioning coach or an athletic trainer.
Okay.
But now I can't even imagine my life, anywhere else. I can't imagine doing anything else. I feel like I was born to do this.
It's amazing how that works out. Now, do your parents support your career now? Do they watch your fights?
Yeah, they're at every fight. They fully support it. I mean, at times it is hard for them to watch. They'll watch through their fingers like this,
Yeah.
But no, they see how much I put into it, and they see that it wasn't just a phase, and that this is my career, and they're fully supportive.
And when you actually go and fight and all that, your friends, are they like the people that you grew up with? They're not in this sport? I'm imagining. Like, do they think you're crazy for doing this, or maybe originally?
I was always a little bit of a rebel, a little bit of a wild child, as far as athletics and stuff go. Growing up, like on the soccer field, I was always. I grew up playing soccer my entire life. I was pretty aggressive. I pole vaulted in high school.
Wow.
I was always competing in karate, so I don't think anyone's really too surprised that I ended up being a professional fighter.
Pole vaulting, that's amazing. I haven't met a lot of pole vaulters in my day. Do you still do that?
No, I only did that in high school.
Wow, were you good?
I held the record at my high school for a while.
Look at you. Wow, well done. So how do you transition from kickboxing to MMA? I mean, obviously there's the discipline of kickboxing in MMA, but how are you going to go back and forth? Because you want to focus on one thing at a time, right? It can get a little bit confusing, I would imagine. So how are you going to juggle those two balls?
Right now, obviously, since I've got a kickboxing fight coming up,
yeah.
The majority of my training, is based around that. But as soon as this fight's over, I'm going to have to just double up on my groundwork and stay sharp on my feet. And then the real thing, I think the most difficult thing that I'm going to have to figure out is the in-between stuff, like how to, obviously the groundwork is my main priority because it is my weakest area, but the transition, like just the really subtle changes, I'm going to have to figure those out as I go. But I don't think it should be too much of a problem. I've been training MMA and helping out, some of the girls in the UFC, like Carla Esparza. I've been working with Jessica Penne, and for years I've been sparring partners with them. I've been, learning from them a little bit here and there. So I'm not completely foreign and completely new to MMA, but now it's just really about sinking my teeth into the groundwork and training it for myself instead of as a partner to help these other girls.
Do you feel like you're on the cusp of big sponsorships, really people coming on board and jumping on the time bomb, because you've been sort of, tucked away in the Muay Thai world, but you see what some of these women are getting. Like, are you itching for that? Do you feel like that's right around the corner for you?
Yeah, it's only a matter of time.
I like the confidence. Is the goal to end up in the UFC? Do you want to eventually fight in the UFC?
Of course, yeah.
Okay. All right. I wasn't sure.
I don't want to do it I don't want to do this just to do it halfway. If I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it right. Go big or go home.
Absolutely. How far away do you think you are from that? Like in your mind, 2 years, 3 years, 1 year? What do you envision?
Maybe 1 to 2 years.
Okay. What a story that would be. All right, but first things first, it's Glory on May 13th in California, and your fight will actually be on Fight Pass as well, correct? You'll be on the Fight Pass portion of the card? Great. That's big. But not for a title?
Yeah. No.
Okay. All right. Well, I look forward to it. Great to have you on the show. I wish you the best, and thank you for squeezing us in with all these appointments, all the stuff that you have to do before the fight. I appreciate that greatly.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
All right, there she is. Time Bomb. What a great nickname. Tiffany Van Soest. She'll be making her Glory debut on May 13th. She'll be making her Invicta debut, as you just heard, on September, what did she say, 23rd? Okay. Just got a text message. we were supposed to be joined in a bit by Glenn Robinson to talk about the Jordan Parsons situation, but he texted me that unfortunately, without going too far into it, he has had to postpone, and I completely understand. In case you missed that story yesterday, Jordan Parsons, young fighter who fights for Bellator, he was actually supposed to fight on the May 14th card in San Jose. He was involved in an accident, unfortunately a horrible accident, a hit-and-run accident, and I was told as of last night that he was in critical condition. I was also told that he sadly had to have the bottom half of his right leg amputated, which is just, horrendous. This man, you go on his social media, just seemed to really be loving life and in a great place. Rashad Evans tweeted last night that he was in a coma. Seemed to be obviously a well-liked fighter at the Black Zillions and a young man who had a bright future ahead of him, and just a horrible turn of events. There's a GoFundMe page that has been set up for Jordan Parsons, and I tweeted it earlier. I will tweet it again in a bit. And we just wanted to have Glenn on, who, of course, is the head of the Black Zillions and the owner of the Jacko Hybrid Training Center out of Deerfield Beach, Florida. I wanted to have him on just to give us an update on how he's doing and just see, if he's going to be okay. Forget about the fighting, just if he's going to be okay. Because, as I said, Rashad Evans tweeted last night that he was in a coma, and he was okay to come on earlier this morning, but he just informed me via text message that that's not going to happen anymore. And of course, I completely understand there are more important things for him than talking about all of this on my show. But I definitely wish the best, and I know the MMA community, being the tight-knit community that it is, always supporting its own, thinking and rallying and hoping and praying that Jordan Parsons is able to pull through here. We wish him the very best. So we will transition now and welcome in our next guest. Very much looking forward to, and I know a lot of you are as well, to talking to the one and only Joanne Calderwood. She got some great news last week. She'll be fighting Valerie Letourneau in Ottawa, Canada, in the first official UFC women's flyweight fight. How about that? 125 pounds. Joanne, how are you?
I'm good. How are you? Good to see you.
Good to see you as well. It has been a while. Long time no speak.
Yep. You've been avoiding me.
I'm not sure about that. I don't think that's accurate. We can get into that if you must. So first of all, what fantastic Skype we have here. A great connection over in Scotland. So I appreciate that greatly. You're looking crystal clear. But I just have to ask you about this because you informed me. You've changed your phone, right? You're going old school. Yeah. Where's this phone?
Yeah.
What is going on over here with this phone? Look at that Nokia. Why do you have that phone now?
So before I went to Canada, I gave my iPhone 6 to my mum because, over there, my network wouldn't be working. So I was just like, well, there was no point in having a phone. So I just gave it to my mum. And, yeah, I've just been living off of my iPad whenever I need any Wi-Fi or internet connection with anyone.
This reminds me a lot of Rory McDonald. I don't know if you've ever seen his phone or if he's upgraded, but for a long time he was rocking the flip phone, the older than old school one than you have. And I feel like he told me like it was kind of liberating for him. He didn't want all this information. Do you like it as well?
Yeah, I love it. I've only just got that phone. Like before, I didn't have a phone. I just had my iPad when I was in Canada, and I kind of got used to it and kind of enjoyed it, a little bit. Like when I went out and stuff, I didn't have my phone and I wasn't like distracted. So I just thought that it's something I should look at when I get back. And then when I got back, obviously it's a little bit harder being home and not having a phone. So I was like, you know what, I'll just get a wee cheap throwaway phone and got that, and it's been great.
I like it. I respect it.
Everyone's been making a fool of it, but it's all good.
It's a good.
I'm sure like in 2 weeks they will have it.
Well, for now it's a good conversation piece, so I say stick with it as long as possible. So let's start chronologically here, because you win in July in Scotland. What a moment that was for you, and you were actually coming to New York around October, November. You were going to go train at Marcelo Garcia's. Unbeknownst to our audience, you were actually going to visit us in studio, which was very exciting to us. You're over there in Scotland. It's very rare that you're here, so that was exciting. And then we get the news that you are fighting Paige Van Zandt, which is even more exciting. You're fighting in December. And then we get the news, unfortunately, that you got injured. And you still came to New York, but you didn't want to come on this show. You didn't want to talk about it. What kind of place were you at? Were you devastated that you weren't getting the fight? You just didn't want to talk to anyone?
Yeah, like everything was going great for the start of the camp, and then obviously this was my first kind of major injury, and I was other things were going on and stuff, so this was kind of just like a cherry on the top, and I've been going in this spiral of being up and then something happening and then going down, so I've managed to deal with the kind of vicious circle. And yeah, at that time I wasn't like, I was going to come on, and then I was like, no, because it's shit talking about it. I felt like I had let a lot of people down, not only myself but my fans, and everyone was like so excited about the fight, and I was like, I've blown this amazing opportunity. And yeah, I was just like, and being in New York, and my two friends were away training, and I was like just dragging my arse through New York trying to I was doing my Christmas shopping, but it wasn't what I wanted to do,
What was the injury that you suffered?
My MCL, I sprained it in wrestling like the week I got back from Thailand.
Okay. But you didn't need surgery, right?
No.
But you did.
I just had to take time off and then rehab it.
How difficult was it for you? I don't know. Did you watch it live? The fight, Rose ended up replacing you, of course, and we know what happened in the fight. She dominated Paige and submitted her. How difficult was it for you to either A, watch it live, or B, find out shortly thereafter what happened?
It was very hard, but at the end of the day, I knew I had, at that time, I knew I was going to Canada, and I had this new journey, and I was looking forward to going on. And even though I didn't have that fight, I'm glad the two of them put on a hell of a fight. And it does suck, as a fighter, when you watch any kind of event, you want to be the one in there. So when you know that it should have been you, then it sucks just that little bit more.
Did you stay up to watch it live?
No. I always just watch it the next day.
Okay. Yeah, who wants to stay up that late? I don't know how those European fans do it. It's unbelievable, but I give them credit as well. So you say you're going to go to Canada, specifically the greatest city in Canada, Montreal, Quebec, Canada. You go to the Mecca that is TriStar Gym. Why did you decide to make that move? You have obviously been a part of the gym in Scotland, Grip House, right, for forever.
Yep.
And then you decide to make the journey over to Montreal. Why did you decide to do that?
I just decided that I needed a more professional team around me. I wasn't really getting the MMA. I needed to be more, my jiu-jitsu more MMA based, my wrestling more MMA based. So, and I was just kind of looking to go to Canada because it's a place I want to go. And I had been watching Faraz's instructionals on YouTube, his YouTube channel, and then I spoke to Joe Duffy at the Glasgow card, and he's like, why don't you come over and try it? And obviously Stevie Ray, one of my teammates, had been there, and he rated it. So I was like, you know what, I've got nothing to lose, and it just seemed like they've got the dorms and stuff. So I was like, fuck it, I'm going to go and see what happens.
How did the team in Scotland react to this news that you were going to go train over there?
Well, the team in Scotland, I think everyone knows, I had been in a relationship with my head coach for 7 years. So we've been separated for a few years now, but at the same time we were still trying to work together, and then we weren't working together. And now, at that time, we had completely, there was no, 4 weeks before my Scotland fight, there was completely no going to be any working together. So that kind of that was hard for me to move on with my career because I've always had someone there telling me I should do this and dealing with everything. So I just felt like I needed a new team around me and I had to build this up, and everyone at the Grip House understood, and everyone wants me to do well over here. So I'm sure there was a few people that thought it was a bit shit and stuff, but at the end of the day, I've learned I've had to do what's best for my career, and it wasn't at that time, and even now it's not good. I need to be the best, and to be the best you need the best people around you, and not just the number, like the UFC people that are at TriStar, all the sparring partners I'm exposed to, and the high level coaching that I was exposed to was just at the top level. You need all that stuff.
Yeah. You know, I don't know if you remember this, but I believe last time you were on this show, you talked about some issues that you were dealing with, but you never actually said what you were dealing with. So I'm assuming I had no idea about any of that stuff with your coach. Is that what was going on? Is that why you just didn't seem to be yourself in the fights and all that?
I don't know, it's just been like for the past 2 years since I came out of the Tough House, it's just been one thing after another, and but now everything's good, and I'm focusing on the future. I had a few counselling sessions and stuff, and I think that done me well because I was always like thinking about the past, and I was always like thinking of what people were saying and that kind of stuff, and it really hurt me that I couldn't be part of the team anymore. And you know what it's like, everyone's got their shit to deal with, but now I just kind of want to concentrate on the future, and obviously I've got the fight that I wanted, and looking forward to that.
So you get to Montreal, and it's a new country, a new gym, a new team. Obviously, there are some familiar faces. You know some of the people. What was it like initially for you? Did you feel comfortable? Did it take some time? What was that experience like?
It was amazing. Like within the first 2 days at TriStar, I felt like I was at home, and it was just obviously I love training, and I would train with anyone, but it was just within 2 days I was like, yeah, I'm at the right place, and I just felt like I settled in, and everyone was really nice, and I got on well with everyone. And as the head coach, I connected with him, and knew that we would get on well in a working relationship.
Does it help? I mean, it feels like there's this European invasion at that team. Also, Tom Breeze, Arnold Allen is killing it. He's there as well. Does it help having some Europeans there? Does that mean anything to you? Does it make you feel more comfortable?
Yeah, I would just say the banters, they're more on with it, and maybe they can understand me better than some of the other guys. But but no, like I would go if there was no one there,
Right.
But it's just a little bit nicer that, especially the guys, they're cool and they're funny.
Now, you mentioned these dorms. A little known fact, I went to elementary school with the guy who owns the building that houses TriStar and these dorms, a man by the name of Robbie Stein, which is, kind of crazy that he owns it. And we went to, elementary like 20 or so years ago. What was that like for you? What's it like living in the dorms? Because predominantly it's men living there, right?
Oh, yeah. There was a few girls that came and go like for a few weeks, but yeah, it's mostly the guys that are in there, but they just treat me like a sister, and it's all good. And Robbie's there every day, and he's some character. He'll be glad to know that he's on here, but
that I name dropped him?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. But so how does it work? Do you get your own room, or is it like how does that work? Because you're living there for like 4 months or so, right?
Yeah, I've got my own room, and
okay.
On shower and stuff, but share my bathroom and all that kind of stuff in the kitchen with the guys.
Does that get a little annoying to be living with fighters for several months?
I was used to it with Tough. I done the Tough like
That's true.
The girls, and I would say like the guys are obviously better.
Yeah.
But Yeah, it was tough. Like, that's why I came home, because I was like homesick, and it's worth it when you've got that fight at the end of when you come in at night and you're like had a long day and you're like you just want to go to your bed, but and be in your own company. But when you have a fight, it's just, it kind of drives you that wee bit more. But with the family and stuff, I was just homesick, and
Yes.
although everyone was nice over there, but you know what it's like. It's not like the same.
Sure, your poor mother. She must have been missing you like crazy as well. Was it tough for her to have you leave?
Yeah, but like, I don't know if you see my video on Instagram. She was like, I surprised her. I didn't tell her I was coming home because
yes.
she knew I was homesick, and she knew I was a little bit down and stuff. And she's like, "Don't come home, you'll regret it," and all that. And then I turned up on the door, and she opened the door in her dressing gown, and she was like, "What are you doing here?"
That is amazing. So you came home, but you're planning on going back, right?
Yeah.
When do you go back?
I came home, I think like in a week or so. I'm just waiting for my flight details
Okay. So you just came home to sort of recharge your batteries?
and renew my passport.
Ah,
That was
okay.
10 years old. Man.
Oh, my. And now I have to ask, what did you think of my city, my hometown, Montreal? Did you like it? Did you get to go around and see? Did you get to like live it up a little bit there?
Yeah, I went out a few times as well, and it was lovely. Just the people are really, really nice. And I mean, it was cold and stuff, but
Yes.
I didn't think it was that bad.
What about the French? How do you get on with that?
Bonjour, I just like
Oh, wow. Well
say
done.
bonjour and then hello, and then they know that I can't speak French, but I tried a little bit, like to say ça va and just tiny little bit, but I should probably learn it.
Now, what about one of my... Go ahead, sorry.
But everyone loved my accent, and then
Yes.
it kind of made it a little bit easier because I felt bad.
Of course, they can understand. What about one of my favorite places, which just so happens to be right next to TriStar, the Orange Julep? Have you been there?
No, but
Come
it's
on.
just around the corner.
It's right around the corner. You got to go.
Yeah, but I had like mixed reviews from it. People said it was good, and then people said it was rubbish.
Who's saying it's rubbish? They don't know what they're talking. It must be one of those foreigners.
Are the healthy ones?
Well,
I think.
maybe yes, it's the healthy ones. Yes, then I can understand.
But I always like walk past it and think if I could like run up and do a Superman punch, and with a
That would be a great picture.
punch it. Yeah.
For those that don't know, it's a massive orange. It's gigantic in the middle, right next to TriStar. I do suggest before you start cutting weight that you go over there and try it out. By the way, being at TriStar, did you ever run into George St. Pierre? Was that kind of crazy, like a legend being in the gym? Is he nice to you? Is he showing you any tips? Have you had any interaction with him?
Not so much GSP. He does the class every Monday. It was really good getting technique off him and stuff, and he's a really good coach, and he'll always like give you examples of when he's used it in the fights and stuff.
Yeah.
So I thought that was pretty cool. But no, mostly Rory. That I sparred with Rory a few times, and
You sparred with Rory?
yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, he's like he probably walks around. What does he walk around at? Like 190 or so?
This is only like we're only like kind of messing about playing like
I thought full
throwing some
sparring.
elbows and stuff. No.
What was that like?
He'd knock me out. It was really cool because I enjoy watching Rory fight, and I know he likes to kind of play around the way I do, and it was just cool to see, and then cool to actually do it with him.
Rory's the man. Okay, so this news comes out that you're fighting Valerie Letourneau, who coincidentally is from Quebec. You're fighting her in Ottawa, so this is great for you, right? Because you're going to be in Montreal leading up to the fight, so you just have, it's only 90 minutes away. Is that the plan? You're just going to stay till the fight?
Yeah. Yeah.
And the interesting twist is it's happening at 125. The UFC doesn't have a flyweight division for the women. Why is this happening at 125?
I don't know actually, because funny story is like Sean Shelby asked me to fight an opponent on Canada, and I said yeah, but can we do it catch weight because it was like in 7 weeks, and what is the UFC's plans for making a flyweight division. And then I just asked them out of like chance. I've kind of thought I would have been like, shut up, bitch, and get on a diet. You've signed your contract at 115. But actually, he got back to me and he was like, let me know. And then next thing, he's like, okay, what about Valerie at 125? And I was like, perfect. Let's do it. And then he's like, okay, I'll try and get the green light. And then he did. And then Bob's your uncle. You don't ask, you don't get.
Yes, Bob's your uncle.
But,
Amazing.
But really, like, I could probably make 115 in the next 7 weeks, but I just didn't want to kill myself. And it's been hard to, like, I haven't been walking around at my normal walk around weight. And I don't think I could, like, when I done it when I was going in the house 2 months before, and then when I was in the house, I was, like, miserable. I was, like, eating, like, 2 eggs a day and, like, just chicken and spinach, and I just don't want to walk around like that. Obviously, I want to walk around healthy and happy, so it's been hard. And usually for when I make 115, I usually need like 10 weeks notice and just bring it down gradually. But the fights that were coming up were like short notice, and I'm like, if it's 125, I could easily make these fights and I could take them on short notice, but 115, just like, it would kill me.
Did Sean say to you that they're planning on actually starting this division and having a champion and all that? Do you have any insight in that?
No. He just says, because when I asked him, he says, oh, let me check because we don't even have that division. And I was like, yeah, I know.
Yeah,
but
no kidding.
You know what? I think there's going to be a lot of girls that want to come down and want to come up. So I think it's going to be an interest if they do bring it in. I don't know if it's a one-off, but UFC's like, they're usually one step ahead, and they've probably maybe been thinking about it, and let's hope they have been. But
is that the perfect weight though for you? If they do open up that division, is that where you would prefer fighting?
Yeah,
okay.
Because I like to be active and to take fights on like this one, like not that bad. It's like 7 weeks, but even like to take one at 4 weeks and stuff, I would be able to make 125. So that would be perfect.
And why do you like this fight against Valerie so much? She's a tough out. She hasn't fought since her fight against Joanne Calderwood in November, but she's a tough cookie. She's a tough out, as I said. Why do you like this matchup?
I just like her because the fight she gave Joanna, and she's a really good fighter, and like you said, she's really tough, and I just see it as a good challenge. And before, like when I had been asking Sean I wanted to get on the Canada card, so I was like saying, give me Randa, give me Valerie, like I'll fight any of them just to get on the Canada fight. And then he was a bit kind of like, oh, but Valerie's just coming off the title fight, and that kind of like made me more determined that I wanted her as the fight, because I felt like I knew I could prove me and I could prove him and prove anyone else wrong, that she was coming off a loss to Joanna, the champion, but at the end of the day, it's a fight.
Will Faraz be in your corner for this fight?
Yeah.
All right. How about that? So like I said earlier, I mean, I never knew why, and I tried to ask back then, but one of the worst kept secrets in this sport was that you weren't there. Like there was something going on, but no one wanted to talk about it. Is it fair to say that JoJo is back, that you got your mojo back, JoJo's mojo is back, that you're feeling good, you're confident? This is the Invicta Calderwood. This is the one going into tough. Like you feel it, because I kind of sense it via this Skype that you're a different person than the last time you were on the show. Is that accurate? Do you feel that way now? Okay. All you needed was to go to Montreal. That's it.
Yeah, and have some amazing people around me, and obviously I got counselling a wee bit, so that helped as well. And now I'm just like, I just know I can't control anyone else's. I just feel like I'm more happy at myself, and yeah, and I'm looking forward to getting back in there and enjoying it again.
Does this kind of feel like the start of your UFC career? Like you want to forget about those other fights and now you can really prove to the UFC fans who you are as a fighter?
Not really forget, because everything happens for a reason and stuff. It just took me longer than I wanted to. So, and I took obviously a loss in a stupid fight. So, being like my last fight, like I was a bit kind of over keen and through a Maddie,
Right.
as one of the guys says at the gym. So obviously you have to be smart in this game and don't want to do that again. But yeah, everything happens for a reason, Ariel, and everything's looking up now.
Well, that is fantastic news. I know you have a very loyal fan base. They must be, I know they're very supportive, but they must be very happy to hear this. This is great. Welcome back. It's great to have you back on the show. It's great to have you back in the fight game, feeling good, smiling again, loving life. It's a beautiful thing. So I wish you the best of luck on June 18th in Ottawa. Beautiful place. Have you been to Ottawa?
No, I've seen the pictures, so it looks amazing.
Yes, it's our nation's capital.
Yep.
So it's a very important place. And I think that's a great fight. You versus Valerie Letourneau at 125 pounds. Joanne, really appreciate the time. Thank you so much. I know you're back home, but you took out some time for us. Thank you. Good luck with the temporary phone over there. Good luck with the passport. And good luck in training back home in Montreal. I think that's a great place for you, and I wish you all the best June 18th. Can't wait for the fight. Thank you.
Thanks, Ariel. Have a good day.
Same to you. There she is, the one and only Joanne Calderwood. What a pleasure it is to have her on the show. As always, just a great person, and great to see that she's got her smile back. Like Shawn Michaels way back in the day. He lost his smile, got it back. Joanne Calderwood's smile is back, ladies and gentlemen. That's fantastic news. And what a great fight that is. What a great card. I was just looking at the next few UFC cards. They're back on Sunday in Rotterdam. Debut show in Rotterdam. And then you've got 198, which is just outstanding. That May 29th card is equally great for different reasons, but equally great. You've got June 4th, UFC 199. I mean, have you seen 199? Have you looked at 199? UFC 199 is something else. Let me just go to my trusty... And like I said earlier, just for the guys in the back, we won't go to Glenn Robinson next, obviously. We'll go... Y'all must have forgot Inside the Vault, and then we'll talk to Chuck in a minute. But, okay. Overeem Arlovsky. This is the card. This is Overeem Arlovsky card in Rotterdam. That's a great card. Overeem Arlovsky is the main event. Stefan Struve versus Bigfoot Silva, an important fight for both of them. Albert Chuminov versus Gunnar Nelson. Love that fight at 170. The return of Jermaine Darondami. It's been a minute. My main man, Nikita Krylov, is on the card. Karolina Kowalkiewicz against Heather Jo Clark. Some other interesting. Rustam Khabilov against Chris Wade, who I'd love to have on the show in the near future. Chris Wade, New York's own, gigantic New York sports fan, huge Knicks fan, and he's doing a great job as of late. So I'm looking forward to that fight very much. That's the featured prelim, if you will. That is Chris Wade versus Rustam Khabilov. Magnus Sedenblad is on the card. Who else? Nick Hein against John Tuck. I mean, it's just a great card, top to bottom. Oh, how about this one? Horiguchi versus Siri. That's a great flyweight fight. Haven't seen Horiguchi in a while. So that's the card this Sunday. Prelim start at 10:30. That's on Fight Pass, then FS1 at 12, and then main card at 2. Then you got 198. Vitor Belfort against Jacare is the co-main. Main, of course, is Verdun versus Miocic, 45,000-seat stadium. Anderson Silva versus Uriah Hall on that card. Chris Cyborg's debut against Leslie Smith. Shogun against Corey Anderson. Will that be Shogun's last fight? Damian Maia versus Matt Brown is getting criminally overlooked. That is a fantastic fight at 170 and a very important fight as well. And how about Warley Alves versus Brian Barberina coming off that win over Sage Northcutt? Love that fight. Nate Marquardt on the card. John Lineker versus Rob Font. By the way, send this segment to anyone at Zuffa that ever says that I'm too negative. And here I am just completely fawning over their next few cards. Thomas Almeida versus Cody Garbrandt, May 29th, main event. That's a Memorial Day weekend card. Fantastic, important bantamweight fight. Renan Barão versus Jeremy Stevens in the co-main event. Renan Barão's first fight at 145 in the UFC. Tarek Saffiedine against Rick Story. These are great fights. Masvidal versus Larkin. I think this is what happens when there's a week off from UFC. It's like amazing. Imagine if there was a month off. How much we'd be looking forward to these cards. How about Josh Berkman versus Paul Felder? How about Sarah McMahon versus Jessica Ai? That's also on that card. Oh, and by the way, buried on the Fight Pass prelims, Aljamain Sterling versus Brian Caraway. If I'm the people at FS1 and I see that Aljamain Sterling and versus Brian Caraway is on Fight Pass, I'm a little bit bugged. I'm a little bit annoyed. But that's not our problem. We get to watch it anyway, and that's a great fight. Okay, 199, Luke Rockhold, Chris Weidman. Cruz against Faber. Max Holloway versus Ricardo Lamas. Dan Henderson versus Hector Lombard. Dustin Poirier versus Bobby Green. BJ Penn versus Dennis Seaver. Clay Guida versus Brian Ortega. What the heck is going on? Evan Dunham versus James Vick. Jessica Penne returns against Jessica Andrade. Tom Breeze back on that card. I mean, this is tremendous stuff. Then we move over to the Ottawa card, which I think is great as well. Would like to cover that one. Patrick Cote against Donald Cerrone. Rory McDonald against Wonderboy Thompson. And how about Rory McDonald on Twitter? Just absolutely killing it as of late. The new Rory McDonald is... forget the new Rory McDonald. I've said one of the things that's pissed me off over the years has been people saying that Rory McDonald is a boring guy, a bad interview. That's not the case. Rory McDonald, who is the subject of our Y'all Must Have Forgot clip, by the way, has always been one of the most fascinating characters in this sport. Always. You just have to stray away from the typical questions. I love Rory McDonald, and now more than ever, he's just been fantastic. So that's on the card. Rory McDonald, Wonderboy Thompson. A hugely important fight in the welterweight division, but also important now because, of course, Rory on this show telling the world that he's fighting out his contract. Cerrone versus Cote. Steve Bosse versus Sean O'Connell. I love that one. Elias Theodorou versus Sam Alvey. OAM back on the card. Olivier Aubin-Mercier. Brandon Marcos, Joanne Calderwood against Letourneau. Just a fantastic card. And then we move along to the cards in July with Dos Anjos versus Eddie Alvarez. Joe Duffy versus Mitch Clark, speaking of Canadians and Joe Duffy. That was announced last week. Also announced last week for this card, that's the Thursday, July 7th card. This is the Fight Pass card. Look at these fights that's on the Fight Pass card thus far. Top 3 fights. Dos Anjos versus Eddie Alvarez for the lightweight title. Mitch Clark versus Joe Duffy. Duffy's first fight since losing to Dustin Poirier. Roy Nelson versus Derek Lewis. I mean, that's amazing stuff. And then we get to July 8th, Joanna Jędrzejczyk against Claudia Gadelha. And then, of course, July 9th, which we found out last week, is going to now be main evented by John Jones versus Daniel Cormier. It's been an interesting afternoon for our old friend Conor McGregor. He has been relatively quiet on social media as far as interacting with fans. But man, oh man, has he broken through today, telling one fan that he beat UFC 100 by around 400,000 buys, which alone was 100,000 more buys than UFC 197 made in total. So if my math is correct, he's saying that his last pay-per-view, I'm imagining, the fight against Nate Diaz, beat UFC 197 headlined by John Jones versus OSP by 100,000, that card did 300,000. Also saying that he holds the pay-per-view, gate, TV, Fight Pass, and embedded record, and that he's a bigger draw than Brock Lesnar. Also saying that he looks forward to his end-of-the-year unification bout, but like I said before, as he put it, quote, these featherweights don't understand. He was just going back and forth with a lot of people. Good to see him getting out there. And yes, I have tried to reach out, but, you know, he's doing his thing, and I respect it. No doubt about it. The man is getting more media out of just a couple tweets and Facebook messages than he can get anywhere else. So might as well, as the good people in Louisiana like to say, laissez les bons temps rouler. Okay. In a minute, we are going to be joined by Chuck Mindenhall, who's sort of working as our New York Rick today. He's going to be cultivating some questions. He's gathered a few from the website, from Twitter, etc., and we'll shoot the breeze with him. We might be joined by a surprise guest a little later on, but that is TBA or TBD. So we'll go back and forth with Chuck. No Glenn Robinson, as I said. For now, though, let's pause. Let's go. Y'all must have forgot. Inside the Vault. Last week, I promised you this clip. We didn't get to it, so I thought, why not? April 30th, 2011, one of the most memorable events that I have ever covered. UFC 129 in front of 55,000 insane Canadians. The majority of them were from Canada. 5 years ago this Saturday. A year later, my son Oliver was born. So that's a special date for me. Happy birthday to Oliver. I love him very much. April 30th, 2012 is his birthday. April 30th, 2011, UFC 129, the first ever event as far as UFC is concerned in the great province of Ontario. And congratulations to the Toronto Raptors, I should say, for finally getting over the hump and making it to the second round. That's exciting stuff. People in Canada, including my good friend Drake, are very excited about this. Nevertheless, that was a big night for the UFC, a big night for Canadian MMA. Mark Hominick fell short against Jose Aldo, but had one of the greatest walkouts of all time, and a song that I know Jones did his thing with it, but that song needs to be retired because Hominick put it up here and no one can match that. He fell short, massive hematoma. George St. Pierre sends the fans home happy. Even though it wasn't the most exciting fight, he defeats Jake Shields in the main event. Top to bottom, it was a great card. It was a very memorable. That week was just insane. I remember going to the CBC, which is like our version of the BBC, and doing an interview there about the rise of the UFC. This is 5 years ago now, and that was surreal in its own right. I'll never forget it. And I kind of feel like Toronto, if I'm being honest, is due an event. I know there's a Canadian event coming up in Ottawa, June 18th, and at least another one planned for later on this year. I think 3 in total for this year. It'd be nice to get one in Montreal, obviously, although I think that 186 kind of killed Montreal for the moment. Toronto, I feel like, is primed for another event. Anyway, this interview took place at that event. It's a post-fight interview with Rory McDonald. It's amazing to note Rory McDonald beat Nate Diaz in a welterweight fight on that card on the prelims. Wasn't even on pay-per-view. Rory McDonald, Nate Diaz, prelim fight. I spoke to Rory afterwards. This is 5 years and 2 days ago at UFC 129. We've been talking about Rory today. Nate, of course, in the news, was successful in his return to the welterweight division against Conor McGregor. I thought it would be fun to look back at this one that I promised you last week that we never got to run. So here it is, my post-fight interview at UFC 129 with Rory McDonald, and then after the interview, we'll be back with Chuck Mindenhall to take your questions and comments.
Ariel Helwani post-fight at UFC 129 alongside Rory McDonald, who defeated Nate Diaz tonight. And Rory, another impressive victory for you. And it's interesting, going into this fight, you were talking about how much you learned from the Carlos Condit loss, and it almost seemed like when we were watching it, we could see how you learned so much from that loss. You were a lot more patient, you didn't get too excited, and you seemed very comfortable on your feet. Would you agree?
Yeah, I learned how to use my technique at the right pace, to bring no emotion into the cage and against my opponent. My last fight, I carried a lot of emotion. I got very psyched out because of the crowd and the energy that was in the building. And I didn't let that happen tonight, even with double and more fans. I kept a level head and throughout the whole fight.
As the fight went on, you dominated him more and more. Were you expecting the fight to be that one-sided?
Yeah, I'm disappointed I didn't get the finish, but I felt like as the fight got closer and closer to the finish, I was getting closer and closer to finishing him. Obviously, he's very tough, and I couldn't get the finish, but. It doesn't always happen, not at this level.
Well, you had a few highlight reel moments there, especially in the third round with the 3 suplexes, and you were throwing them around like a rag doll. Have you been working on that? I mean, you look a lot stronger than maybe some of your earlier UFC fights, but you were overpowering him out there.
I feel like I'm a very strong, explosive athlete. I've done a lot of work in the last 10 months with my coach John Chaberg in strength and conditioning field. So my power and explosion has gone through the roof, and in positions like that, it shows.
Do you think you could have suplexed him a few more times, or did that get you a little tired?
No, I was ready to go more, but I felt like I needed to pace myself and still fight smart. You know what I mean? I had to keep that level head and not go over the top like I did last time.
He's a guy who's fought at 155 as well. Considering how much you overpowered him, do you think he would probably be better going down to 155?
Probably. Like, the strength difference is pretty noticeable when I was in there. He has very good technique, but you know, at the higher end, when you're in UFC, it's so hard to fight bigger guys because everyone's so well-rounded and so much great skill. So it's, you know, it's probably better for him to go to 155. But who am I to say? It's his choice. You know what I mean?
Did he talk to you in the cage?
A little bit, but I can't even really remember. I was so focused on my technique.
And it was pretty loud out there, right? What was it like for a guy who's 21 years old, a Canadian, to be out there in the Rogers Center in front of 55,000?
Yeah, it was amazing. You know, it was cool to see just such a big stadium. You know what I mean? Filled up with the sport. I remember watching it when I was just a little boy, and you know, the front row of a tiny arena would be empty for a main event. You know, and now there's a stadium, you know, filled, and I'm fighting in front of it. It's a dream come true, man.
Could you grasp the enormity of it all as you're walking out, or maybe even after the fight? Did you take a second to soak it all in?
After the fight, yeah. Before the fight, I was so focused. You know, I had a couple of looks around, but I really didn't really even think about it.
So we're talking to you in the middle of the night. John McDessie, Ivan Menjivar, yourself. I mean, things are going very well for your team there. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's one more, right? There's one more important one. You guys could look very good at the end of the night.
Yeah, I'm very happy with my teammates, and I'm so proud of all of them. Even win or lose, I know we put in the work, and you know, they all did great, even though some of them didn't come home with the victory. But you know, I know George is next, and he's going to shine like he always does.
Is there one guy in particular that you'd like to fight next?
Not really. You know, I want to keep fighting good guys. I feel like my skill level is at that point. I still do feel like ring experience. I still need that. You know, I'm still very young. I've only had 12 fights now, and you know, a lot of the top 10 guys have had a lot more ring experience in the UFC, and there's only one way to get that, is to keep fighting in the UFC. So, you know, over the next couple of years, I'm going to keep getting that, and maybe I'll get closer to the top level of the sport.
Well, it's been fantastic watching you evolve, and congratulations. I know you've been waiting for this one for a very long time. Great stuff. Can't wait for your next one.
Thank you very much.
All right, so there you have it. Rory McDonald after his big win over Nate Diaz. Interesting to note that Nate returned to the lightweight division after that fight. Went back to lightweight, beat Takanori Gomi, then Cerrone, then Jim Miller, lost to Benson Henderson in a title fight, then lost to Josh Thompson. Remember, and you know, for a minute it seemed like, where was Nate Diaz going? Rebounded against Gray Maynard, and then was very inactive, was fighting once a year. Lost to RDA, beats Michael Johnson in December, and then, of course, beats Conor McGregor, and everything changes for him. Now he's training with Jean-Claude Van Damme. You see that on Instagram? Nick and Nate training with JCVD. I mean, what does Sensei have to say about this? JCVD picks his spots well and links up with the 209. What a stroke of genius that is. Going to take him to the next level. I guarantee you of that. Before we get to the man of the hat, just want to give a shout out to our colleague and friend, Mark Ramundi, who's going through some health issues right now. Perhaps he's watching this show to take his mind off of things. Probably not, but we do wish him well, and we miss him, and we hope that he returns in good health in the very near future. All right, let's go to the Skype machine and welcome back the man in the hat. There he is, Mr. Chuck Mindenhall himself, which I must say, last time, Chuck, I don't know what's going on over there in Connecticut. Last time your Skype was a lot cleaner than it is today. What's happening? Did you not pay your bill?
I don't know what's going on, man. We
Okay.
have a little rain here. Maybe that's affecting it.
That's probably it. So I have tasked you with the important duty of getting some questions from the website, from Twitter. This is something that New York Nick demands we pay him the big bucks to do, and you just kind of did it on a whim with your eyes closed. Is that right?
I just want to say, man, this is like I'm the third string coming in. When Raimondi can't make it and Rick is gone, here I get the call. So yeah, but it's a pretty simple task, you know. Rick cracked it up to be something a little more difficult than it is.
And for the record, don't look at it as third string. You know, I know Raimondi likes the airtime and he enjoys kind of sitting on his computer all day. Rick is obviously paid to do this sort of thing. And I said, you know, Chuck would be great at this. So that's the way I'd like to view it.
I appreciate that, man. I like the call. I like that call.
By the way, the T-shirt that I mentioned earlier, the MMA Beat T-shirt that your lovely wife actually designed, right?
Yeah.
She put that together, right. and you made the whole thing happen. You got it on MMA Warehouse. Let's get a shot of that shirt just one more time here. I know we won't see Chuck on the screen, but since I'm talking about it, there it is, right over there. The MMA Beat shirt. You got the nose, you got the beard, you got the shirt, and of course you got the hat. Your wife designed this.
Yeah.
Put it on MMA Warehouse. Proceeds go to Higher Heroes, and it's almost sold out, right?
Yeah. I got a note today saying that there was only a few of the larges and extra larges left, so the stock went pretty fast. So I guess if you're going to get one, you should do it today.
Look at that. Unbelievable. All right. Great job by all of you. Okay, so what do you got? You got any questions? Any good stuff out there?
Launch right into this thing. I'm just going to start asking questions. That's it.
Well, trust me. I know where I'm going.
Breeze a little bit.
No. I'll look. I'm all business here. I got some things I want to ask you, but let's get the ball rolling here. Any good stuff out there? I mean, people are still talking about Conor and all that stuff, right? 200. What do we got?
That's what I was seeing a lot of Conor McGregor. So I thought I'd kick it off with the Conor McGregor thing just to get it rolling. But I got a lot of the same question, basically asking us what we thought of him taking to Twitter today and having the impromptu Q&A, I guess, with some of his fans. He was pretty selective, I guess, in what he was taking. But what do we make of this?
Well, you know, that's an interesting thing. That's actually the first thing I wanted to ask you about. I'm surprised that it feels like even... It felt to me, this is my take, and I want to hear your take. It felt to me like he was playing this perfectly. He was, you know, doing the whole retirement thing. He comes back, he puts out his statement, and he tells the world, you know, I just want to train. I don't want to dance for you. And I feel like he should have kind of just stopped there. But now the UFC is moving along, and they're just saying, like, look, man, we'll put you on another card. This train's moving without you. And he keeps pushing, and he's doing things that he's not used to doing, like interacting with fans, and it almost feels like he's like that guy saying, please come back, please come back. And I don't want to see him in that light. You kind of feel the same way here, like this is not the right approach anymore.
Somewhat, because I mean, to me, it's like he's so antsy, you know what I mean? Like,
yes.
We've talked so much about how he stands a lot to lose by just not doing this tour and then not being in this spot. It's basically postponing whatever his next payday is, everything else, and then having the spotlight again in a different way. But he's to kind of go about it like this. I don't know. I get the sense that he's antsy and he doesn't know what to do with himself now, because I think he is a natural promoter. I think that's what he likes to do, even if he doesn't want to have to fulfill, like, you know, some of the obligations they were asking him. Traveling around and stuff, but I just, you get the sense every time he does something like this, he's sitting there like ready to jump out of his skin, wanting to do something to keep the pot stirred and get people talking again. And I guess that's exactly what he's doing, because here we are again talking about it. But it was a little bit interesting seeing what kinds of things he's addressing. You know, we're used to seeing his audacity and everything like that, but you know, him basically being bigger than Brock Lesnar and all the records he's breaking, the Pacquiao Mayweather style. I mean, it's always fun to see it, and you're not sure where he's going to take it, and so it becomes kind of a compelling piece of theater all on its own. But I do get the sense, like you do, that he should have maybe stopped while he was ahead. I think it would have carried more, you know, import or something if he just disappeared for a while.
You even got in there with a question of your own.
I did, actually.
Did he respond to you? Did he respond to you?
I'm pretty sure I'm blocked. No, I don't know. I don't think he. I'm sure he was getting a deluge of questions. I just threw one in just to see, because I saw there was a couple of feeds that I recognized that he answered, so I thought maybe I'd sneak one through.
Wouldn't that be something? An exclusive interview via Twitter for Conor McGregor. Are you surprised, Chuck, that the UFC is sticking to their guns? I mean, at this point, I can't see them putting him in the co-main event, although it feels like he still wants that fight very much. Are you surprised that they have officially stuck to their guns on this one and said, we're moving on?
Not really. At first, I was a little bit surprised. It's only because of all the precedent we'd seen with that McGregor had established with UFC basically getting what he wanted. Even getting the rematch with Nate Diaz was a personal request, something he wanted to do at 170 pounds. So I felt like they were bending, giving over to whatever he wanted to an extent. And I felt like there was just that moment where they said, we can't keep doing this. You know, we got to send the message to him so he comes back down a little bit and meets us wherever. So I guess not, because they're, the UFC's stubborn. I mean, that's what they, that's part of the reason they've gotten to where they're at, is because they're so stubborn. They stick to the guns. There is a principle that they play regardless of who they're dealing in. We've seen them butt heads with the number, television, apparel, et cetera, et cetera. I just feel like in the end, it's always going to be the UFC that the UFC looks out for. So I feel like they dug in and they're just keeping it that way. But having said all that, would I be shocked if all of a sudden he was going to show up on that card or something? No, I wouldn't, because if somebody wants to play the game, like he said, a little bit, like Dana White always said, play the game a little bit, I feel like they would make that concession.
Obviously, I will say this: I think it was a mistake to take him off the card, even though he was asking what he was asking for. I do respect the fact, though, that they didn't relent. I mean, as a father, when you lay down the hammer, you can't go back. So I actually will say that I respect the fact that they didn't relent. And in a weird way, UFC 200 is going to sell itself because it's UFC 200. No one's buying 198, as good of a card that it is, because it's 198. No one buys the cards for the numbers. 200 they will buy for the number. So now they almost get the best of both worlds, because they'll get 200. Tickets are almost sold out. They killed it with ticket sales last week, and now they get Conor for another card down the line, so you get two for the price of one. They actually end up winning here in a weird way. They're the winner, right?
Yeah.
They won.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I was listening in a little bit on the Gunnar Nelson's interview with you just a little bit ago, and he was saying, 201, 202 possibly. And that's the way I kind of see it too, because even in that media exchange he was having today or on social media, he was basically saying the end of the year would be the unification bout for the featherweight. In other words, that's still something he has on his horizon, so there would be a fight in between. That's just the sense you get. I would guess, if he's going to do that, though, it would have to be UFC 201, wouldn't it? That's like toward the end of July, I believe.
Yeah.
That's where it's set up. That would make a lot of sense. To make that a big event right off the bat, coming off of 200. So I would feel like that if he's going to fight in November at MSG, if he's going to be a part of that whole thing, I think he would pretty much have to be on that card. So I guess we'll wait and see. But I feel like the UFC, you're right, because it's a milestone event. There's UFC 200. It has good fights from top to bottom. Like you mentioned, a lot of times there's a name on every single fight on that card. There's really no duds. There aren't a lot of like mismatches, things like that. So I feel like the card itself will carry, not just with diehards. It's going to cross over because of that number alone, regardless if he's on there or not. But I know a lot of people are really angry about it, having been dangled that fight, and then they don't get it, and they feel like they're missing out on something. But as we were kind of discussing last week on the MMA Beat, it's just, you look at that card and you think, if this card had been assembled without mention of Conor McGregor ever being on it, everybody would have been pretty pleased, I think, with this card, man. It's so set up to be a big event. So I feel like in the end, it's going to look very good with UFC 200 and then possibly 201 with Conor on it.
You do wonder, though, if you put Conor on 201, which I believe is July 30th,
yeah.
You do wonder, though, if that hurts 200, because will fans then decide to skip out on 200 and see their guy Conor? Conor's a bigger draw than anyone in the game when it comes to pay-per-view and ticket sales. Is it actually a mistake to put them so close to each other?
I don't know. I don't know if it would be. I get what you're saying too, because this is between pay-per-views too. It's a pretty truncated little window there. It's two events in July. They may look at something like that, but timing-wise, I still think if they want him on MSG, I suppose they could go into August. That would still probably give them enough time for 202. But ultimately, like you were saying, I think the number and the sort of celebration, the new arena, all those things that are kind of happening with 200 and all the festivities leading up to it with all the cards that are happening in Vegas, all the things going on. I think it's going to still, regardless, I think it'll still sell, even if they were dangling McGregor out at 201. I think so, but it may affect it to a little bit. But ultimately, I think because we're talking about a lot of casual dollars for both events, I think that both would still be very strong.
I also wonder, though, because they say that they're not going to put him in New York, although Dana White seemed to go back on that a little bit at the press conference in New York at MSG on Wednesday.
if it's 201 or 202, it can't be Frankie Edgar or Jose Aldo because they're fighting at 200. They're not going to turn around that quickly. So is it still Nate? Do you still care to see the Nate fight at this point? Like, has the ship sailed on that one because it's not happening anymore? That was never the fight that anyone really... Let's not forget, this is the amazing thing that happened last week. When that fight was announced, everyone crapped on it. No one wanted to see it. And now it's the fight everyone wants to see, which is amazing. And more to his point that he's able to kind of supersede all this craziness. But if it doesn't happen at 200, do you still care? Or do you, at that point, if he doesn't fight at 200, save him for New York and just have him fight the winner of Frankie and Aldo? I mean, I don't know what the heck they're going to do with him. It's
We're
a mess.
fickle bunch, Ariel. We're a fickle bunch, man. We want what we want. When we don't want it, we want it, and we don't, whatever. But
that's life. That's life.
So I still think that we get that fight, only given that those two guys now, I feel like we've wrapped our mind around the fight. You know, like as a collective, we've come around to it. On whole, I wouldn't say that everybody wants to see that fight. I still don't like the arbitrary weight of 170 pounds. I still think that they could have it at 155, and then it would at least be something different there. And you'd think like, we're working towards something new. But I still think that's the one in the crossfit. I mean, Conor McGregor wants that fight more than anything. I think that's the guy he lost to. How does he respond? I mean, today when he was on social media, it felt like he still was very much honed in on that particular fight. I feel like Nate Diaz, because that's a huge payday for him, would still want that fight. I feel like all parties involved, except for maybe a smaller, a decreasing, part of the following of MMA wants to see that fight. So I feel like that's still the fight to make, especially if you want a timeout where you can have Frankie Edgar possibly at MSG against Conor McGregor, which to me would be an amazing fight to put on that card. That's still intact. So I think the Diaz-McGregor one is still the way to go.
You still run that risk, though. I mean, he could be 0-2 in his last two fights, fighting a big guy, and then going back to defend his title. Health-wise, we saw this with Roy Jones back in the day. I don't like to see a guy jump up that much and then go back down. I mean, I just feel like his body, and Gunnar was talking about this as well, 155 seems to be the weight for him. So I do agree with you. If they are going to do that Nate fight, again, they're going to go back down, this road, which it's somewhat getting a little bit exhausting. Like, aren't you a little bit exhausted from all this saga? I'd like to see it at 155. Yes, I remember you tweeted that recently. How it's didn't you tweet that? How it's exhausting to keep up with
something to that effect. There's so many like little internal games, and there's so much enthusiasm. Yes. People expend all the time on every little whim, and I was just I don't know. I was in that mood or something, but
no,
I was just.
I hear you. And then, of course, Josh Gross comes out and tells you that you shouldn't follow the nuances. You gotta love Josh. Sometimes he comes in there,
shutting me down, picking me up, man. Josh.
So let me ask you this: prediction. How does this story end up? When does Conor fighting against who? What is your gut? Do you have any sort of inkling at this point?
Well, my gut feeling is that he can't stand the idea of not being in the actual spotlight. So I feel like he wants to get in there. You know how he's been. I mean, that's been what we've seen with him. He's a guy who knows how to work the spotlight. And when it starts to not hit him in the right way, I think he wants it to be the way he controls the narrative again. I think he gets in there. I really believe, like when Gunnar was saying that he could see 201 or 202. I know Dana White echoed that same thing during that press conference at MSG. I think that's what they'll do. That's what my gut feeling says. I'd be shocked, honestly, if they held him out all the way to November, because I don't think he would want that. And whenever they reach their compromise and when they work things out, I think that they'll work it out that he's going to be on one of those two cards.
What a saga. But again, this saga is making him into a bigger deal. It's good for everyone involved, especially if they.
He's got a remarkable capacity of keeping himself relevant in moments like this. It's crazy to me. Remember the whole ACL thing when he barely was.
That's true.
It's like his star was sort of preceding him at that point, but he maintained calling everybody out in the division. He just does a great job of remaining relevant and the story itself through everything. So
he starts tweeting, and I get people tweeting me to say, "Go look at Conor." Like it feels like the MMA world stops when he decides to tweet. It's unbelievable. Okay, what else is going on? Anything else?
I don't know. You want another question?
Yes, I want another question. Thank you for asking.
Yeah. Okay. That was my question.
What
do you think of Derek Lewis versus Roy Nelson? That fight makes a ton of sense to this reader.
Yes, I love that fight. I feel like that's a fight where the UFC says we have two guys with fan-friendly styles that we're just going to put together on this fun weekend celebration of MMA.
Derek wanted the fight. Roy wanted the fight. I mean, that to me was just like sometimes these fights fall in Joe Silva's lap, and that's one of them.
Yes, I agree with you 100%. I felt like this thing dovetailed very nicely. The timing, because they were on the same card.
Yes.
They were on the same card, right? Yeah,
Yes.
so it was like that whole thing dovetailed nicely. And sort of where they're at in their careers, because you see a guy who has a name like Roy Nelson, who's been up there for a long time. He'd lost 3 fights in a row before that whole Jared Roshaw thing that happened. So he got back off the schneid. He won that one. But you got Derek Lewis, who's been very. I really don't remember. I don't think he's had a decision since he's been in the UFC. I think you have to go all the way back to like a Bellator. I looked this up at one point before, like a ton of fights ago, where he had a decision. So I feel like Roy gets a mulligan. A guy wants to accommodate him in a fun fight after the last one that kind of went down, and you get Derek Lewis, who that's what he does. That's his whole style. So. He's one of those up and coming names too. A guy who's like a burgeoning personality, like his character's starting to come out more and more. He was very sort of introverted when he came out in Orlando.
It's
and
amazing.
I remember how shy he was and everything. And suddenly here we are, like not even 2 years later, and he's at this point. So it's been fun. He's got that trajectory. Roy Nelson being where he is, I feel like it makes a lot of sense.
He shows up on this program wearing actual red underwear on his head. And do you follow him on Twitter? Some of his tweets are fantastic.
Yeah, they are. I like the one. You know the one I'm talking about, where he's dropping the kids off at the pool. And
yes.
He can cross over thresholds pretty fast, so I can dig that.
By the way, someone just tweeting me now. I am Brent, saying that Venezuelan vixen, who is Juliana Pena, not maybe one of those who doesn't like when Connor tweets. Check out her last tweet telling Connor to shut the F up, just out of nowhere, like not in response to anything. She's had enough of his tweets, so you can count. You can count Juliana.
She's won.
Yeah, there she is. But yes, I love that fight, and what a feather in Derek Lewis's cap if he can beat Roy Nelson. I don't want to call Roy Nelson a gatekeeper. Sometimes that term is used negatively. He's more of a litmus test, right? If you can get by Roy Nelson, you're a player. If not, you go back down, you work yourself up. They need some action. By the way, speaking of the heavyweight division, this might be one of the more important stretches in recent memory for the heavyweight division, with this Arlovsky-Overeem card on Sunday. Following week, of course, Verdum-Miocic. That's super important. Kane is coming back a month and a half later. I mean, all of a sudden, the heavyweight division, which has felt dormant for a while, right? I mean, Verdum hasn't fought in 11 months. Isn't that crazy? Verdum hasn't fought in 11 months. How about this? Cain Velasquez.
We're always snagged on the heavyweight division. I feel like we're always being held up by one thing or another for it to get moving again.
Cain Velasquez hasn't won in 3 years.
Yeah. I know that's a crazy stat. Considering where he was, he's doing all these the commercial with Ronda Rousey and everything. You think that he's at the top of his game, and you realize something like that. But this actually dovetails into this next question, because somebody was wondering if Overeem should deserve a title shot if he's to win against Arlovsky.
Okay, this is a fantastic question. I don't really know. Okay, so you have this. The good thing for the heavyweight division right now is that you've got some players. The weird thing is that there's this mess, because you have Overeem, who beat JDS and has a win over Arlovsky. You have Ben Rothwell, who beat Overeem but recently lost to JDS. I mean, there's just all these permutations. I do think, though, that and then what happens if Kane comes back, smokes Travis Brown? What do you do with him? If Travis Brown beats Kane, what do you do there? Although he's lost to Verdum, I don't really know. I do have a feeling, though, Overeem, given his popular fan base and the fact that he's so popular and that Lorenzo Fertitta seems to be a fan of his, I feel like if he wins on Sunday, he gets the title shot. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so too, and especially given that he's won 3 fights in a row after hitting the skids a little bit, so he's rebounded very nicely, and it would be his win over JDS will look that much better given how JDS looked, because it's that convoluted, like how JDS looked against Rothwell. You feel like maybe he beat a JDS that was better than when he looked that night, or better than he seemed that night. So I think that you look at those 4 guys, if he adds Arlovsky to that, who had this big career resurrection before he lost his last one to Miocic. So I think you would just be able to look at his 4 fights in a row and say that's more than enough. and especially considering that he's in a spot. He renegotiated, or he just signed his new contract. I don't know if there's any language that basically kind of gets him that shot or something like that. But I feel like they've been grooming him for a long time. They wanted to kind of put him in a big title fight, going all the way back to the Lesnar series or that fight and everything. So it comes down to that, and I think this would be the perfect time for them to do that and get new blood, I guess, at the top of the division again, above guys maybe like JDS, who's been up there, and if depending on what happens with Verdum. But I think that would be the guy, as long as he does it, and he does it in his typical fashion where he lands some crazy knockout or something. I feel like he'd be the guy.
Let's not forget he was supposed to fight for the belt at UFC 146 and had to be removed because he failed, this drug test. But he is supremely popular. He still is. And I think as far as draws go, I mean, Miocic, Verdum is lucky. They are lucky that card is so stacked. I don't know how much they draw on their own. That's been a weird thing about the heavyweight division. The Kane fights haven't drawn very well on pay-per-view. So I think Overeem, he's this big hulking figure, although he's not as hulking as he was before. I'm really curious to see what happens in this fight, by the way. I don't think that we should sleep on Arlovsky. Let's not forget, in Arlovsky's corner, Jackson and Winklejohn, they know Overeem better than anyone. They're responsible for this resurrection. Those guys are the masters at game planning. You know what I mean? What a bad spot this is for Overeem in a weird way. Like, to have this fight as the last fight potentially on his road to getting that elusive title shot, to fight his coaches. They're not in his corner. Wow. That's a fascinating storyline.
And considering he's been a bit of a journeyman when it comes to gyms, he's been very nomadic in where he's trained and everything. And if he's truly found a home where he's at, it adds another complication to the whole Overeem story. So these types of things are fun in a weird way because you always feel like there's a partition, a brotherhood or something that comes up. They actually had to really downplay that, saying like we're not buddies and everything. But the coaching staff obviously is torn, and it becomes a little bit of a civil war or something like that. But I do look forward to that fight, and we can't really sleep on Arlovsky because here's a guy who basically, I know we've talked about on the MMA beat, who resurrected himself after the World Series of Fighting, losing that fight to Anthony Johnson, and suddenly just rising and winning, 6 or 7 fights in a row to get where he was at. I mean, beating Travis Brown in that ridiculous fight. I just feel like that guy has really listened to his coaches. He's really honed in on what he does well. He stayed out of punishment, like we were seeing his jaw tested too much back in those days when he was losing. I feel like he's corrected a lot. So it'll be interesting to see. And if Overeem, I feel like if Overeem gets it, he's going to have to deserve that fight. He's going to have to win it emphatically.
Somewhat speaks to how close knit the team is with Arlovsky, that they chose him without really any hesitation to corner him, Jackson and Winklejohn. By the way, just for your own knowledge, if you do speak to Overeem before this fight or after, please don't ask him about his contract in any way, shape, or form. He does not appreciate it. Even if you say congratulations on the new contract, he will take that as a slight.
Doesn't he get pulled over by the police every time he's asked about that question?
Yeah, I
remember that interview.
That was a good time. All right, so what else we got? Anything else?
All right, so
I hope
let's
so.
move on from there. So somebody was asking, are casual fans missing out on Robbie Lawler? Because obviously he's been around a while, and it doesn't seem like people talk about him, even though he has these ridiculously competitive fights that are action-bound for 5 rounds. So what do you think about that?
Well, I do think it was to his benefit to take this break, right? I feel like Robbie has become somewhat of a forgotten champion for a minute, but that's not the worst thing. He comes off that fight against Rory McDonald, has a little bit of a break. No, not too long of a break. I mean, it was only like 5.5 months or so, and then has that absolute insane fight against Carlos Condit early January. So this break, to me, given all the destruction that he's been through in his long career, isn't the worst thing in the world. I do feel for him to a degree, though, because had Conor won, there was a lot of talk of Conor fighting him for the 170 title, as crazy as that sounds in hindsight. And if that didn't happen, there was some talk of GSP fighting him, and that's not happening anytime soon. Right. So it does feel like his options went from, greatest payday of his career to just another title fight. You know what I mean?
Yes, 100%. It's funny too because during the whole, he was behind Conor McGregor and Aldo during that whole tour. He's sort of happily in the shadows of that whole thing, and so it was fun to contemplate, I guess, if McGregor was going to be the guy. Suddenly he would be like going against a guy who it was like twice removed from him, who was taking all the spotlight. Suddenly he'd be in that position. That's obviously not going to do it. And I feel like he has been a little bit stranded through our news cycle of waiting to see what's happening with GSP, what's happening. I feel like the UFC has been kind of gauging what can we do next for Robbie Lawler, given that there aren't, really clear-cut guys at the top to face him. You have Carlos Condit and you got Rory and Steven Wonderboy Thompson. They're going to fight. I mean, you got some options there, but they need to play out a little bit, I feel like. But as far as him, I mean, I feel like he's just one of those weird heirlooms from back in the day that people just forgot about. I feel like we put him away, and they never wanted to bring him back out. And I feel like he's still in that spot, even though he's had possibly 2 fight of the year candidates. I mean, he had the one against Rory McDonald, which I think hands down was the fight of the year of last year. And then he had this great fight with Condit, which you could do a rematch. You could do anything with Robbie Lawler at this point. The guy he's an incredible story. That whole comeback story, the way he fights, his whole demeanor. I feel like he's the prototypical fighter. It's almost prehistoric to see him kind of enter the cage. You see this guy who's been doing what he's doing. I'm just not sure, though. It must be a charisma thing. It must be something about him not being able to. They've been bringing him to events a lot. I've seen him. You see his face more and more. But for whatever reason, that's just not. It hasn't translated into like must see outside of like diehards, and why that is, I don't know.
I think he has turned the corner to a degree. I do understand what you're saying. I've actually tried to have him on this program, with all this going on, and he was not too interested in that. Let me ask you this: as a consumer, take off your journalist hat, put the fan hat on, and let's just say there. Yeah, I know you got many hats. Connor's out of the question. GSP's out of the question. To me, it seems like, at least right now, things can change come June when Rory and Wonderboy fight. But right this second, and I'd like to see them book him in a fight sooner rather than later, because I think if Wonderboy beats Rory, he's without question the #1 contender. Anyway, let's put that fight aside. Tyron Woodley and Carlos Condit are the only options right this second for him. As a fan, which fight do you prefer?
As a fan, I would go with Condit. I just think there's so many great storylines there. Basically, going back, I know that we've talked about a little bit like the rematch fatigue that people are going through, but when there is a great fight like that basically is contested toe to toe for that amount of time, I just feel like you can't go wrong in something like that. Particularly with Carlos Condit nudging himself out the door a little bit. If he doesn't get it, he just doesn't see the point of starting over or taking on other fights at this point. So as a life raft, maybe to bring him back or something for Carlos Condit, I just think that would be the fight. I do feel I feel like the Woodley fight is one of those ones that feels slightly obligatory on some level, because we've been talking about it for a while. He's kind of been the guy who's like 1A or 1B in that contender spot for a while. But unfortunately, the more you're out of the spotlight, the people care less as time goes on. And I feel like he's one of those guys who slips into the shadows too easily. But Condit is still there. That fight is still very fresh on the memory. And if not, I would definitely go with the Rory McDonald winner of that fight, especially if it's Steven Wonderboy Thompson. I mean, like you said, that's a slam dunk fight. And at this point, if he beats Rory McDonald, I would be like, we got to watch out for Wonderboy Thompson. I feel like he could be like the next star of the game or something.
He could legit be a crossover star. Like, that's someone that I think the UFC should actually do a better job.
How many people have talked about the aesthetics he put on in that Johnny Hendricks fight? And it wasn't, it was Johnny Hendricks. I think that goes a long way too. If you follow the game, you know how Johnny Hendricks fights. You know that he, what he likes to do. He has the wrestling, but just to see him picked apart in that manner, almost as if it's choreographed. And I know I don't want to use that word like it was fudged or something, but choreographed, and just how beautiful it came across. If he does that, anything remotely close to that again, I feel like he would be that guy.
The UFC is not an organization, and MMA is not a sport that necessarily needs to be marketed to young kids, though I feel compelled to sit my 4-year-old son down and show him what Wonderboy Thompson can do, right? Because he comes across like a Power Ranger, like a superhero, right? It's amazing. And then you meet him and you talk to him and you see the way he conducts himself. He really does feel like this cartoon superhero. So yeah, they've got something special with him, and that's why I feel like that main event, which is kind of sandwiched between 199 and 200 and all those events, is going to get overlooked a little bit. But it's
there's no more interesting main event, title or not on the line. There's no more interesting main event in the next few months than that one, in my opinion.
I agree with you 100%. I would put that on par in terms of a non-title fight, but a fight that you just want to see going to the Ferguson Nurmagomedov fight. I mean, we've tried that one a couple of times. Yeah. Each time it gets close, I get very excited about seeing that fight, and then it doesn't happen. But I just hope that this one happens, because that's the attitude I have. I feel like Rory McDonald, going through what he's been through, being in his free agency stuff, and kind of going through that last fight and all the different things going on. What version of him do we get? You know what I mean? So it's fighting in his home country, and then Stephen Thompson. Sometimes the trajectories, when they hit like that, they just make for a very, very compelling fight.
All right, what else we got?
All right, let's see here. Somebody was asking, what's the biggest matchup currently not made in the UFC at the moment? Is it Anthony Johnson versus Glover Teixeira?
I don't know how I feel about that fight. I mean, it's a great fight, but I honestly feel like Anthony has done enough to get a title shot. That is I don't know. Let me think about that. Do you have one?
I think what they're saying too is, people who are not actively booked right now or don't have a booking.
I get it.
People with fighters.
Did you have a chance? I mean, you read the question earlier. Did you think of one? Let me think here.
I mean, other than maybe Diaz McGregor, which isn't technically made right now. I mean, there are fights where you look at like Ronda Rousey against Cyborg, or Ronda Rousey against any number of them, but all of them right now are currently booked. So in the vein of what this person is talking about, I couldn't think of anybody, because most people have some kind of they're booked right now.
Sure.
Maybe they haven't done anything with Ferguson, right? Or I wouldn't mind seeing that fight put together again, but I wonder if people would be. That's just my own personal preference, because I wanted to see that fight, like I mentioned. I don't know if other people are at this point like, don't even try it, because it's just not a bad it's a bad combination. It won't happen. But maybe something like that. But I will say that it generates a little bit of it. That division needs it. They need guys who are going to draw some attention, because right now I feel like we're at DC and John Jones, and then what from there? It's Anthony Johnson, and then it kind of drops off. Maybe Glover Teixeira. I feel like those are the next two guys, so maybe that would be a good matchup.
Okay, now that I've had a chance to think about it a little bit, a few that come to mind, and I know Frankie Edgar is booked, but I still feel like Frankie versus Conor was the fight to make, is the fight that should have happened, and it's unfortunate, at least for Frankie, that it's not happening right now. So that one comes to mind, but he is booked, so maybe it's not 100% what this person is asking for. It's not the sexiest fight of all time, but I'd love to see TJ Dillashaw versus Rafael Sunsao. Both aren't booked. Sunsao beat Dillashaw before he became champion, right? I mean, that feels like it was a million years ago, and how many people can actually remember what happened in that fight? So I feel like that's an interesting fight. I just want to see Tyron Woodley get booked in a fight, period. I mean, by the way, Woodley versus Neil Magny is not the worst fight in the world. If
I'd be down for that. I'd be down for that.
Especially if Woodley's not going to get that title shot, I don't think that's the worst fight in the world. So those are a few fights that come to mind. And I guess Anthony Johnson, I mean, he will be on the sidelines for quite some time. I wonder what they're going to do with Gustafsson as well. That's another interesting one. And by the way, I'll just throw this one out there because it means a lot to me, and I've been banging the drum for a little bit. And I know the middleweights are fighting for the belt June 4th, but I do hope that Michael Bisping sticks to his guns and does get that title shot. I know there's some people, there's some guys coming up, Robert Whitaker. There's some interesting options. But I want to see Bisping get in 2016. Michael Bisping should get that title shot. And Holly Holm, it's kind of crazy to me that she's not booked in a fight as well. So those are some names that come to mind.
I would throw in maybe the GSP Robbie Lawler. Like if GSP's coming back, those guys, if they were able to do it, obviously something like that. But if guys who are actively out there, I get you've named some pretty good ones.
Yes.
So the next one, somebody was asking about Good Morning America. What do you guys think about Good Morning America becoming a platform for UFC breaking its news?
Okay, well, I'm happy that someone asked about this because I wanted to talk about it. I spoke about it a little bit. So I don't know if this is a platform for the UFC to break news. Remember, this wasn't the original plan. The original plan was to go there with Nate and Conor, which would have been quite the scene in itself because of who they are. But they used it as a platform to break news. You watched it, I know. I watched it as well. It was clunky. I mean, there's really no other way to put it. It was clunky. It felt forced. It felt hokey. you know, the UFC, like when Ronda was on, that felt a little different because it was just one interview and she used it as this platform to sell Holly home. The other stuff with all the little vignettes and the Tim and Susie hosts, which, you know, I mean, it's amazing. It's exactly what he was referring to. And even like all the guys sitting there, they all felt half asleep to me. They didn't sell Jones and Cormier. They're not going to show the brawl on Good Morning America. I wonder if they get, honestly, I wonder if they get one pay-per-view buy out of that spot. You know what I mean? It didn't feel like it accomplished anything.
People sort of poo-poo all over the MMA demographic. And, right, you know, you can look at it and be like, yeah, maybe there's a point to be made about that. We know we deal with the MMA demographic all the time, so you see all kinds of sides of it. But I watch something like that, and I truly wonder about that demographic. And I wonder about, like, what happened along the way for that to become, like, the show, you know. It's like this bubbly morning show where they're drinking their coffee and having this warm conversation, thinly veiling tragedy. Essentially, like, let's go to the 911 call of Kid Rock and this and that, and here's somebody who died doing this, and the Fuller House neighbor who's upset about the house. I mean, all this weird stuff, and then they break, you know, segue into the UFC fighters that are there, and they're just shadow boxing, like that's what they do all day. Like, it's just so bizarre and embarrassing in some way, but. I mean, if they think there's a crossover audience that can somehow make sense of that, and people want to, you know, tune in to see, you know, the fights based on what happens on there. I guess that's the way it is. But that show to me is just what a non-parallel. I feel like they're just two different worlds completely. In fact, I don't want to get too much on the soapbox, but I don't even understand the world of Good Morning America, to be honest. It's just one of those things that I feel like that's a part of society that I don't even get. So I'd rather they didn't do it that way, but I understand, I guess, the novelty of doing it that way.
I guess I understand it as well. I mean, look, I understand putting someone like Paige Van Zandt on that show. She's on Dancing with the Stars. People are seeing her on a weekly basis. She's got a great story. She's got this look that people at first glance are like, what? You're an MMA fighter? I mean, I understand like a one-on-one interview with Paige Van Zandt. Yeah. To have all these characters there, to fly Daniel Cormier, you know, from the other side of the country to do this and just have him sit there, and they all looked half asleep. To me, it did not inspire me to watch the fight as an MMA fan. I know they weren't trying to get me. I just have a hard time believing that some housewife or some retired woman in Queens, New York, sitting in her kitchen, you know, making coffee or tea is going to watch this and be like, guys, girls, we got to watch July 9th. It just, what was that?
I guess you're right too about you know, if Conor McGregor's on there, maybe it becomes something different. He's very infectious, obviously. Like if you have somebody like that on there, maybe he does reach into a lot of more homes, and people are like, wow, who is this crazy Irishman? But you're right, the assembly of guys that they had, the people they had there, it really didn't make sense to this particular one. It made more sense, I guess, when Ronda Rousey went on there to announce her fight, because it felt like some kind of strange crossover platform, because there was that audience for Ronda Rousey. But ultimately, man, I could do without it, and I certainly don't want to have to be awake for the next one when that happens. So.
And how about, I mean, were there some wolf tickets involved in the sense that they were saying it was a UFC takeover when it really wasn't a UFC takeover? It was like certain segments here or there, but I was thinking takeover, this is a 2-hour show that's now being devoted to the UFC. That
was a very strange tease, because it was a 7 a.m. here on the East Coast, and I was watching at 7 a.m. I don't think they got to anything until like 8:40 or 8:30 or something like that. It was an hour and a half of my life that I won't get back. But
okay, well, and I understand why they would want to do it. I understand why it's a big coup for them. So I get it. I just don't know if the payoff was what they expected.
That's true.
What did you make, by the way, of the MSG press conference? I wasn't there. You weren't there as well, right?
I was not there. I liked it.
You liked it?
I know a lot of people. I liked it. Well, maybe it's because John Jones got through his hurdle. He got over his hurdle. He came out unscathed. He's able to take this fight. Maybe it's something like that. But I just felt like he was in the best form you could see him. I was really happy to see him in that form. It felt very natural.
Yes.
He was laughing. He was like, there was nothing insincere about it. He gets caught up in these moments where people are like, oh my God, he's in his artificial mode. He's being fake or whatever. To me, that was completely organic. His whole back and forth with Daniel Cormier. I thought it set the table very nicely for for the fight again, but I also felt like it was very organic. That bad blood that had to be put on hold is right back to where it was, and it's actually kind of evolving at this point into just more subtle and inside jokes that everybody's in on at this point. So I felt like I liked it. I personally really thought it was. I thought he handled himself well, and of course Daniel Cormier handled himself well. So it got me a little more stoked than I was, I guess, for the fight. And it made, for me, it made UFC 200 feel like it was going to be better than we were projecting.
Honestly, that's the best main event for UFC 200. That's as close to Brock versus Mir that they can get, in the sense that it's a 1.5 year long build. They last fought a 1.5 years ago. These guys hate each other. They're not, no one's as big as Brock as far as those two are concerned, or anyone not named Ronda and Conor. But it does feel, okay, this is a legitimate title fight. It feels to me like, and I know this may sound weird, it feels like Daniel brings out the best in Jon Jones, in the sense that when he fights a guy like OSP that he feels like he has to be so nice to, it always feels disingenuous. When he can be himself and show up in his t-shirt and just crack jokes and put Daniel down, it feels like we're seeing Jon, for better or worse. That's Jon Jones, and I prefer to see that Jon Jones. He's a lot more comfortable. So I agree, as far as press conferences are concerned, I thought that was one of his best, because he just seemed like himself.
Same here. For everything you just said, I believe he needed that guy. We couldn't find him for a long time. Daniel Cormier came along. That's his antagonist. That's the guy who's he's been there. He's masquerading with his belt. There's a lot of factors going in, but the bad blood has just reached that point where it's like you have to do something about it. And I liked his demeanor and how he's just like, hey, we're finally going to do this. And it was just very relaxed. Like he's been visualizing, he's been wanting to be there. And Daniel Cormier, it's great too, because he knows how to egg him along. And I feel like that's it just makes for a fun fight for me. But I was more interested in it coming out of that than when I went in. I guess that makes it effective.
The dynamic is great. It was fun seeing like the same 3-4 people asking questions. It felt like a Saturday Night Live skit where they kept like showing like Mike Straka emerges and just starts asking questions, and then he asks again and he asks again. Yeah.
Mike Straka. It was good to see him. He kind of showed up when he was needed.
Yes.
So somebody was asking, gentlemen, please discuss the new Reebok fight kits.
Oh.
Did you foresee them making such radical changes?
You consider those radical? Have you seen the kits?
I think somebody's being facetious.
Oh, okay.
I think
it's funny. When I spoke to people close to this whole Reebok fight kit situation, they told me that around July or so they were going to introduce sort of phase 2. And if you've been listening to their interviews and following their narrative, they've always said that typically a company like Reebok gets around 18 months to come out with a new line, and they only got 6 or 7. So just wait for phase 2. Great. Phase 2, if these pictures from the Sports Business Journal are to be believed, it doesn't look all that different. I mean, there is an infusion of color, but it's the same design, just a little more color here or there. If you haven't seen it, think what Conor McGregor wore when he fought Jose Aldo. He had the green trunks. That's pretty much it. I mean, it's just a little more color. I was expecting more. I was a little disappointed. What did you think?
Well, yes. I mean, first of all, aren't you colorblind? Like, doesn't it all look the same to you?
Yeah, and that should say something. It does kind of all look the same, but even I was able to notice.
It just occurred to me. But anyways, I guess that's baby steps, right? It's like baby steps towards something new. But I guess color, being a very basic change, and I feel like when you're watching in the most simplistic form, one of the turnoffs, and I don't know if it's just the volume of fights or whatever, but I don't know if it's gotten really stagnant really fast, is just seeing black versus white, black and white. So I guess if you're just taking the baby steps and you're just trying to do something, a little bit of color doesn't hurt, especially if they're able to customize, I guess, to the specific colors. I don't know what that means. I don't know if they're still sort of enforcing this like this national thing where you had to kind of go with your country's colors, or if they're allowing you to kind of choose your colors, because guys like Rich Franklin or Anderson Silva, who had very specific colors, you'd like to see them at least be able to come in the colors they want. And if they're addressing that, then I guess the most basic form, I'd say, like, good job. I don't see it as a radical change, but I say color makes some difference. It's like it's a little easier on the eye to see people with that kind of personality, I guess, in there.
I still feel like they're missing the boat with the individuality, the approach. Like that's what the fight game is all about. That was a big thing for Mike Tyson to show up, wearing that towel over his body and the black boots with no socks and all that. I mean, that's a big part of this sport, and it's weird.
100%.
Go
Chuck
ahead.
Liddell. I mean,
Yeah,
just with this
that's right.
ice, like things like that. I agree with you 100%. You'd see them. It was all part of the brand. It was all part of the man. It was all part of the whole experience. So that has been stripped away. I truly didn't know how the Reebok deal would affect everything as it went forward. I wasn't sure if it would just make it look cleaner, make it look more professional. To me, it really doesn't do that. It just makes it look like clinical or something. There's some I don't know. It's just it hasn't succeeded in the individuality, and I hope they figure that out. If it's not going to happen now, at least they're adding color, but hopefully they figure out how to let people be themselves going forward when they revise it all. Yeah,
like Ben Rothwell not being able to wear his whole get up there, to me feels like a mistake. He's still able to wear the he's going to wear the kit in the cage, but to not let him wear all that seems like a mistake. And also I hope that it evolves at some point to the point where the fighters get at least one sponsor on the shorts, because they keep talking about how this is the case in professional sports, how, there's a uniform and all that stuff. Well, it's not 100% true, because let's just take basketball. LeBron James has his own shoe deal, and he makes a crap load out of his shoe deal. So yeah, he has to wear the Adidas jersey, but his shoes are a huge income for him. In football, it's the same. So in soccer, it's the same as well. So where's the extra income coming from the fighters? Sponsorships used to be a big deal, and still are, for Bellator fighters, for Invicta fighters, for World Series of Fighting fighters, for boxers, and now they're just beating, they're getting it cut out. And an interesting thing, like Dan Henderson didn't get the fight. He didn't get the fight a couple of weeks ago against Lyoto Machida. He didn't make his Reebok money, but if he had sponsors, there's a good chance they still would have paid him, because they're paying him for the training camp. So it has to evolve in that sense. I mean, it's coming. Like I said, 1.5 years, 2 years. Let's revisit. Well, we're past a year since they announced it. We're approaching a year since it went into effect. I still feel like the jury is out on this one. I mean, I still feel like I'm siding with the con territory as opposed to the pros.
I'm with you on that. I feel like too they have to maybe modify or come off it a little bit, because I don't know. It's one of those things, like when you look at free agents, I feel like one of the underlying things that keeps coming up is they're not able to have those sponsors. It becomes a hindrance to the UFC and to Reebok, or that partnership, to restrict them to that level. So I guess we'll see how that whole thing evolves. You want another one? Yes.
I also wanted to say I was in Montreal this past weekend, and I was walking downtown, and there's a huge Reebok store, and I poked my head in. This is on St. Catherine Street, which I know you're a big fan of. And I poked my head in, and I got to be honest, I didn't see a lot of UFC stuff. And this was a big store. I didn't see a lot of jerseys. Really? Yeah. And I thought for sure, like, oh, it's Reebok store, UFC. Now, there was I saw a thing, like a sort of, not a billboard, but Ronda had a picture there, but there wasn't like, I couldn't, like when you go to Champ Sports and you can go through the NBA jerseys and you've got Kevin Durant and Kobe Bryant. It wasn't like that. It wasn't like I could go through them and see Rory McDonald and Robbie Lawler and Tyron Woodley. That wasn't the case.
That's surprising.
Right? Weird.
That's surprising. I wonder if that's a
maybe those were tucked in the back.
They realized they weren't selling or something, or if that's just.
Well, how about?
I don't know.
How about the fact that they all look the same? They all look the same, except for the writing.
It's true. It's true. The sad state of things, man. But somebody asked, what's the most exciting event in Prospect that you went to? One that you anticipated the most, kind of going into it. And that's basically the question.
Well, I have a soft spot for the international events. Like we were just talking earlier before you came on about UFC 129. You were at 129, weren't you?
I was, yeah.
That was special. I mean, being in the Rogers Center, and I remember seeing that setup for the first time, walking in and the place was empty. That was super cool. That's something that I'll always remember. So I love the international events, like being in Europe, being in Dublin. I've talked about that for ad nauseum at this point. Being in Sydney, being in Abu Dhabi, those are the ones that really stick out. Sometimes the ones in America kind of feel a little bit, same old.
True.
What about you?
Well, you've been to a lot more places than I have, but I will say that the Ireland one, I feel like it came through, like translated when you were watching it. That Toronto card was a lot of fun, just because of the novelty of the market, going into that market. And then just having GSP on that card, seeing the interaction between him and his fans, and you realize like, wow, man, north of the border, this thing is huge. You know, like that was a lot of fun. I would still say though that if you're talking about strict anticipation of an event where I was really excited to go, I would probably still go with UFC 117. Just the way
that was fun.
Chael Sonnen had carried himself and sort of shattered the whole, you know, I guess you would say, got into, you know, this personal space of Anderson Silva to the point where it got.
Yes.
He was then forced to have to go in there and prove everything in that cage. That became the whole game changer in a lot of ways because of how he sold that fight. And there was a real ticklish spot in that whole thing to say, like, you know, truthfully, he may have Anderson Silva's number. He's the type of guy who might take him down and wrestle him and do things that other guys couldn't. Like Dan Anderson did at UFC 82, where he took him down just for like the first round, but he couldn't sustain it. I was like, well, Chael Sonnen's just going to sell out. He's just going to go in there and he's going to try to wrestle him the whole way. And it played out just like that. It played out in one of the more epic fashions. But as far as like just how it felt going into that fight, I still feel like that was the most excited I've personally gotten for a fight, just given how he sold it and what happens when they finally get in there.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. Remember that press conference in San Francisco in that hotel? Chael really came out and was just annihilating Anderson. And Thiago Alves, I believe, was next to Chael, just cracking up the entire time. That was unbelievable. And yeah, we were tucked away in this really crappy hotel in Oakland. That was the host hotel. Were you at that same hotel? It was like this compound.
Exactly.
And it felt like we were just like, it almost felt like we were like these caged animals, and there was this buzz building. And funny story, I was working for AOL at the time, and they asked me to speak at this, I forget the name, but it was this Asian journalist convention, a convention like geared towards Asian journalists. And they asked me to go speak on this panel with some great journalists, but I don't know if you know this or not, but I'm actually not of Asian descent. But I was still, yes, it's true. I was still honored to be a part of it. So what I did was I left. I missed the weigh-ins. Remember that amazing weigh-in scene?
Yeah, of course.
I flew from Oakland to LA for the day on Friday to go speak at this thing, and then flew back to Oakland that Friday night. And why I bring this up is the buzz. Sometimes the buzz doesn't catch for these events. Sometimes it exceeds our expectations. And I felt like it got bigger and bigger that week in Oakland. In fact, the week before was the event, the Sunday night event in San Diego, John Jones versus Vladimir Matyushenko on Versus. So I actually stayed. It's the only time I've ever done the MMA Hour remotely. I did it from my hotel room in San Diego. MC Hammer was on, believe it or not. This is a lot more than you bargained for here with this story, but I'm getting into it.
Can't wait for your memoir. It's really good.
So San Diego, I stay there for a day, do the MMA Hour on that Monday. Then I go to Oakland. Then I do the media day there. There's the press conference on Friday. I go to that convention in Los Angeles, and I remember thinking to myself, like, I'm leaving the scene of the crime and then going back into the real world and then coming back to Oakland that Friday night before the event. You could feel the buzz return. It was amazing. And then sitting there cage side, one of the rare times that I got to sit cage side for an event and seeing the whole thing unfold and thinking to myself, like, we're 5 minutes away from Chael Sonnen calling his shot and becoming the UFC champion. It was... Oh, my God. Yeah, you nailed it.
And it changed the game. I mean, I really believe that was the event where people like Conor McGregor, I believe guys like him benefited 100% from seeing how Chael Sonnen put himself in that position, how he drew the interest that he did. It's just, I think it really changed the game. That was the moment when you say there is nobody you should be reverent enough when you're fighting. If you're that showman, if you're going to be that guy, there's no such thing as that sort of reverence. You can go after anything and anybody. And I felt like he was the first guy that really, truly took that and just ran with it. And that whole lead up was a lot of fun. And I feel like we're in the position where we love it. We're used to it with guys like Conor McGregor, and it probably stems from something like that event. You know what I mean? So
absolutely. And also, how about this? Something that I always remember about that stretch. That was a great 1-2 punch from the UFC. UFC 116 was Shane Carwin versus Chuck Mindenhall. Shane Carwin versus Brock Lesnar. And that was, a somewhat, surreal fight because Carwin was punches away from becoming the heavyweight champion. And the following month was this Chael Sonnen fight. And within a span of a few weeks, both Chael and Carwin tested positive, failed their post-fight drug tests. So they could have had the heavyweight champion and the middleweight champion, the new champions, get stripped. They dodged massive bullets on that one. That was insane. I remember SI.com writing about Chael, And I was thinking like, wow, this was back, when was this? 2009, 2010. I was thinking like, wow, SI.com is talking about the UFC, writing about the UFC. This could have been a whole lot worse for the UFC. So it all kind of worked out for them in a weird way.
I think it's interesting talking to you because you're like UFC 117. I can see you flipping through the little files, and then you pull it out, and you've got a million things to talk about. So it's amazing to watch you roll with it like that.
Well, thank you.
You got time for another one? Or?
Absolutely, yeah. What do we got? Let's go 3 more. You got 3 more?
Yeah, I've got more here. Almeida versus Garbrandt. Almeida is one of my favorite rising stars in UFC. I feel like a lot of people are overlooking this great prospect fight. What do you think about it?
I love this fight. It's interesting that this is the main event for the Memorial Day show, and they're not doing a pay-per-view on Memorial Day. They're doing it the following week in Los Angeles. Kind of interesting how they switched that around. But Cody Garbrandt versus Thomas Almeida. Thomas Almeida is a very important fight. It's a very interesting fight at 135. I've talked about this. Give me your thoughts. I think right now 135 may not have the biggest draws, but with Cruz as champion, and I do believe he's become a bigger draw and a more interesting guy and a better interview. And I mean, he's just a fascinating character in his own right. I'll still never forget what he told me after beating Dillashaw in January. One of the greatest lines anyone's ever told me about the moment he became happy is when he realized he didn't need the belt to become happy. I feel like that division, what they've done with that division is the complete opposite of what they've done at 125, and it's not their fault in the sense that at 125, Demetrius Johnson is just so active that he keeps blowing through all these guys. Cruz was inactive. It allowed for new stars to emerge. But if you look at that, I mean, let's look at that top 10 at 135. It's unbelievable. It's just filled with young stars. Dillashaw, Barrow's not there anymore. I don't know why he's still ranked. Dillashaw, Faber, Sterling, Sunsao, Michael McDonald, Thomas Almeida, Caraway, Mizugaki, John Dodson returned. Lineker is still in the mix. That's crazy. That rank, I mean, that's amazing. That's an amazing. So yeah,
that is crazy. That is crazy. I hadn't really thought about all of the, because what they have too is a lot of the young guys who are on the up and coming, like Sterling being another one of those guys. And then they've got guys who are just coming in, and then they're sprinkled in with the guys who've been the staples of that division, like Faber, Cruz, and those. So I feel like so you got so many compelling fights, and that is, I guess, a silver lining of Cruz falling out of action the way he has, because suddenly there's a whole new crop of guys that you could match him against if they're able to get to if he's able to retain the title and they get to him, that become very compelling. And this particular fight, Almeida versus Garbrandt, I feel like it's one of those strange ones that I'm always a little conflicted about, because I'm like they're almost at the exact points of their careers. Like, they're very young, up and coming guys, both looking for step ups in competition, both who've looked, very, very good in all of their appearances essentially, and then they get thrown at each other, and you hate to see one of those guys get pushed back at all. You'd rather see them make their way into a bigger fight. If it was like a #1 contender fight, say, which I don't know, maybe it's possible, but I doubt it. But you'd like to see it have those types of stakes to see them cross. But at the same time, I have to look at it and think, then again, they are very young. I think Almeida's like 24 years old. Garbrandt's right around that age too, right? So a setback from one of these guys, you feel like they're just going to learn from it. They're going to be around for a long time. They may cross paths again. I feel like they're two future stars coming together, and that's another one of those silent, those ones that's going to be buried by other fights going on. That'll be a lot of fun to see how it plays out. And whichever guy does emerge, I feel like that guy's probably arrived. He'll be at the moment where he could start to be in contention and start to call out the champ. You know what I'm saying? So it should be a lot of fun.
Garbrandt represents sort of that new team alpha male fighter with, Dillashaw leaving, Benavidez leaving, Castillo out of the UFC. But again, that card, that's a sneaky good card. Almeida, Garbrandt, Stevens, Barao, Safadine, Story, Masvidal versus Larkin, Berkman versus Felder, I versus McMahon. That's a great card.
That is a good card. Yeah, given
Aljamain versus Caraway,
night, right? So just a fight.
Just a fight night.
Some of the Memorial Day cards that they had.
That is true.
Recent, I know it's not happening there, but the Memorial Day cards have been a little bit jinxed. Remember when they're trying the whole thing, and they kind of went down the drain a little bit. So I like the looks of that card quite a bit.
What else we got? What else we got? You're doing a great job, by the way. Fantastic work.
Thanks. Somebody was wondering, I guess we talked about this a little bit on the MMA Beat, but you weren't there. But somebody was wondering what you, I guess, particularly thought about Demetrius Johnson's sort of newfound fame, because it seems like he's turned a corner. I know we were talking about it on the MMA Beat. seems like he's gotten a lot more love for this last fight over Cejudo.
It does feel like he's turned the corner. It feels like, how about this idea? It feels like putting him in the co-main event behind the John Jones, and Conor saying that pay-per-view didn't do great. I'm not surprised it didn't do great. But it does feel like with him, the pressure being off him, maybe that led to a better performance. Maybe that led to a more dominant performance. It feels like things have changed. If you look at his Twitter, the engagements, the people writing back to him, and him kind of being himself and allowing himself to be himself on this Twitch platform, even his interviews last 2 weeks ago in Las Vegas, it feels like people are starting to come around. And the unfortunate part of it all is that he has no dance partner now. He literally has no one interesting to fight right now. There is not a single name that comes to mind as far as and let's give credit to Cejudo. I think he did a nice job of selling that fight. I still think that the fight came too soon. But there is literally no one for DJ to fight. If he's going to fight Dominic, I think that's fun, but I don't think it makes sense for Dominic at 135 with all those great young contenders right now. I have no idea what they're going to do with DJ. I am 100% stumped there. So yes, I agree, but the timing feels weird because there's no fun fight to look forward to when talking about DJ.
Yeah, it's I completely agree with you. I thought for some reason, I don't know if it was because of Cejudo, maybe it's just a cumulative thing where you've seen him enough. Maybe it's because he was in the co-main event where you're not putting the pressure on him to be the main event. Whatever that combination was, there was a real gut feeling that he not only showed up and had this sort of benevolence or warmth or something to his performance or coming in. Like I felt like he was a guy that we were talking about a little different key. But for him to go in there and do what he did to Cejudo, I thought that translated very well to set the table for the main event and everything. It just seemed like collectively that sort of aesthetic, seeing him perform again and as dominant as he's been, and now getting into the record territory where he's starting to come up on becoming a historic figure in the UFC.
Yes.
Whatever it is, it's that combination of things that I think is helping him turn the corner. But I agree with you 100%. We were touching on a little bit on Thursday. I'm just not 100% sure what they're going to do with him. You'd mentioned, I know that was sort of you were just spitballing, but putting a house of guys, sort of reheating all the guys that have been in the division, or maybe a couple of the Scoggins and those type of guys, throwing them in there and letting them fight it out to get to him, maybe something like that. But how long can you keep him, I guess, waiting for that to happen? So I don't know what you would even do with him in the meantime. But the UFC definitely has, because he's the first guy that I really believe that comes to mind who has cleaned out his division. It was something we used to throw around all the time. Like you'd hear Dana White say, as soon as they clean out the division, he's truly cleaned out his division. So it's like he could do. It's either he's going to take on somebody that won't be there, won't deserve it, or he's going to have to fight a UFC a 135er and start drumming up interest on that or making his way that way. But
that would be unfortunate. That would be unfortunate because I want to see him. Yeah, I want to see him break that record. So I want to see him stick around at 125 for at least the next two fights, so he can tie it and then break it. I do think that the only way to go, at least right now, there's no one coming up. There's no real great, free agents out there. I don't really know what they're going to do. I mean, he has fought guys that have come, remember Moraga was fighting on the Facebook prelims, and then they put him in the main event on Fox. So they can come up with something. They could come up with a Wilson Hayes or someone like that. I wouldn't put it past them. They have to keep him active. But it's going to be interesting because I know his contract is coming up. He's got a couple more fights left. It's coinciding with him breaking the record. DJ is not Conor, obviously. He'll never be that, but he does have his quirks. And when you get to know him and start following him and appreciate him, he's a fun guy to watch. I mean, like I said after his fight, if you can't appreciate him, I don't know if I can call you an MMA fan. I know that's a bold statement that pissed off people, but what more do you want out of an MMA fighter? And also, how do you not appreciate a guy whose biggest worry on fight week when he's defending his title against an Olympic gold medalist seems to be pressure washing his fence, which, by the way, he got around to, it seems.
How about that photo?
Yeah, what a great photo. I mean, those abs are something else. Yeah, so DJ's the best. I love him. Okay.
He's great, man.
Last one. What do we got?
Last one. Well, let's see. If it's the last one. So somebody was asking, Jones didn't really make it known that he was undergoing, so that he was facing other things going into his fight with OSP, and one of them being his mom. So they were asking about what we thought about that, him kind of concealing that and bringing it up after the fact.
Wow. It really, It to me, I mean, wow. I saw his father there, who's a lovely man, and I saw his brothers there, and usually his mom has been there, and I know that she had been battling some vision issues and battling diabetes. And he mentioned at the press conference on Wednesday that his mother was losing the battle to diabetes and had to have her leg amputated the week of the fight. And I can't imagine how he was able to fight with all that going on. Now, he went on Twitter afterwards and said that he was regretful of the fact that he used the term losing the battle to diabetes and just said that she was in a battle, so he didn't want to maybe, and I can understand that as well. Amazing. I mean, it makes the performance, there's a lot going on, obviously, with John Jones, and then you add that. But I don't know if you noticed, before he got to the cage, when he was, when you're supposed to put the Vaseline and all that and get the last check, before he did that, he went to his family and hugged them, and perhaps that's why it makes a lot more sense now. So yeah, I mean, I honestly I understand that from what I heard, Daniel Cormier actually went up to Jones afterwards and said, I know we've had our differences, but I wish the best to your family and all that. And apparently they had a nice moment backstage after that. So it kind of tells you what kind of a guy Daniel is as well. Absolutely. But yeah, I mean, wish her the best. And he just kind of dropped that out of nowhere. And I mean, I can understand why he didn't want to say it, but it kind of puts his performance into perspective a little bit, I would 100%. Imagine.
I mean, when you look back on his career, and we're criticizing him for not putting away OSP, but he dominated a fight on his one scorecard, 50-44. I mean, he dominated the fight from gate to gate. Maybe he didn't have the killer instinct that he did, but then you think he didn't have any personal bad blood with OSP. He didn't have any reason to really risk himself. He was trying to get his belt back from Daniel Cormier. He was sitting cage side and all this thing. You look at it and you put it all back together, especially given the circumstances of him being in jail just 3 weeks prior, the opponent switch, and then something like that going on behind the scenes, and also just, his whole driving thing, having to be chauffeured around, everything else that goes on. I feel like you're going to come out of it. It's like one of those moments you'll look back on and think like, wow, man, I can't believe he navigated through that period as well as he did. Yeah. Much less, in the moment, maybe we criticize him, but in retrospect, maybe we'll look back and be like, wow, he was carrying a lot. Some of it his own doing, obviously, like he needs to get himself into a better position with the law and all that stuff. But with all the other stuff going on, I feel like he showed pretty admirably.
By the way, are you excited about Ronda Rousey's new 3-movie deal with Lifetime? What do you think of that? Are you a big Lifetime guy?
I feel like we're circling back to Good Morning America. Gonna grab it out. I don't know. I do feel like, I guess one thing I see about that is I'm like, well, she seems to be maximizing her star power outside of the fight world. She continues to let that unfold, and you wonder how long she's going to stick around. Every time something like that comes out, I wonder like how much will we see her again? I think we see her again, but how long will she keep this going? How much of that will just become her, being a celebrity and moving on. So that was the only thing that kind of crossed my mind. I can't imagine, to be completely honest, I really don't know much about Lifetime. I know my mom and whatever, they've watched it, but I don't really know much about it.
It's not Hollywood stuff. I mean, it's more made for TV film. So interesting. Ronda did emerge this week. She's been on the beach. People have caught her working out and things like that. So let's see if that coincides with a return in New York. It would seem like the stars are aligning. They've always said they wanted her to come back in November, and let's see who it's against. It's an interesting time for Ronda Rousey. Slowly but surely, she's coming out of her shell. I don't know if you saw the Embedded with Travis Brown talking to her on the phone. They had her listed as Brown's girlfriend, so they're out and about with that. So
I feel like at this point it'd be silly for her to downplay any of that. I mean, she just got to own where we're at. Like, she's got to catch up. Wherever our knowledge is, she just has to accept it and be like, okay, this is what I'm not going. Because I felt like it got so contentious during this whole thing that as the way it was happening, it was sort of untenable to be a press member with her, being as defiant with it and all that stuff. So I think it's a lot more healthy for all involved for there to be direct communication without all that being in the open.
Yes, no one knows about that more than this particular site. I mean, holy moly. Yes. So, I agree. Honesty is the best policy.
Mark Raimondi, get well, brother.
Yes, Mark Raimondi. We love you, my man. Great job, Chuck. Any final thoughts? Any parting words? You're done.
Really, man. It's fun. It's cool.
You've had enough.
Get to see New York. He's honeymooning, so I sent him a note earlier and told him I'd try to fill in best I could. So hopefully I hung in there.
Well, I got to be honest. Between Adam's work, everyone on time, your work here, I mean, who needs the guy? Who needs him? He's dead weight. He's dead weight.
That's what they say, man.
You've heard of the story Wally Pipp, right? You've heard of Wally Pipp.
Of course.
Wally Pipp,
Yes.
first baseman for the New York Yankees, takes a day off, gets replaced by the Iron Horse, Lou Gehrig. He wasn't the Iron Horse at the time. And 2,100 games later, Wally Pipp never to be heard from again. Is it possible that Chuck Mindenhall is the Wally Pipp? And by the way, I think I made the same joke the last time New York Rick took a show off. But yeah, I think so.
I'll take it.
Okay.
Anytime I can be compared to Lou Gehrig, I'll take that.
Yes,
So
that's right.
We'll end on that.
I'll see you Thursday for the MMA beat.
I'll be there.
There he is, Chuck Mindenhall, everyone, filling in admirably for the one and only New York Rick. A couple more notes before I say goodbye on this Monday afternoon. Hopefully it's not raining. In case you missed it, our good friends over at Flow Combat, they broke the news last night that Josh Thompson, unfortunately, is out of Bellator's next event on May 14th. What a bummer that is. I was really looking forward to Josh Thompson versus Michael Chandler, and it doesn't seem, at least right now, that Chandler has an opponent lined up. There was some campaigning for Benson Henderson, but that's not going to work. And Benson Henderson just went through a 5-round, pretty tough fight against Andrei Koreshkov. I don't love that idea, especially if it's on May 14th. Maybe later, back at 155, I like it, but I don't like it in 12 days. So that's unfortunate because that doubleheader was great. I mean, that to me was almost the best that Bellator can offer in some respects. Phil Davis versus King Mo in a number one contender fight, the light heavyweight division. Hopefully the winner can face the champion Liam McGeary, who has been battling a knee injury coming off of that. And then you have Josh Thompson versus Michael Chandler. I mean, that was great. So it's going to be interesting. Do they slide in Will Brooks finally one more time before his contract expires this summer? What a strange situation that whole Will Brooks thing is. Where's he going to end up? Deleted his Twitter? Back on Twitter? Anyway, they also announced Sergey Kharitonov versus Josh Appelt. Josh Appelt. I think that's it. So Sergey making his Bellator debut on that May 14th card. That is the same night as UFC 198. So got a little weaker, but perhaps it... I don't think the UFC was really responding to that, to be honest. They stacked the deck for their own reasons. That card was supposed to be a fight night card, and then things changed with the Verdum fight in February getting canceled, and then they moved it to Curitiba, and then they put it in a soccer stadium, and then they decided, hey, we need to revitalize the Brazilian market, and they absolutely loaded it. I will actually not be covering that one in person. The stars didn't align on that one, but I do look forward to sitting home and watching all the fights from home. Also, speaking of our friends over at Bellator, some news coming out today regarding Kimbo Slice, who will be fighting in July against James Thompson. Kimbo Slice, of course, was last seen in Houston, Texas, fighting Ken Shamrock, and he failed his post-fight drug test. This, according to Dave Doyle of MMAfighting.com, Kimbo Slice has reached a settlement with the Texas Department of Licensing and Regulation on his Bellator 149 drug test. Slice, who tested positive for the anabolic steroid nandrolone and an elevated testosterone to epitestosterone level following his TKO victory over DeFear Harris. Excuse me, it wasn't Ken Shamrock. Ken Shamrock was in June. Data 5000, of course, how could we forget, was in February. Bellator 149 in Houston will pay the commission a, get this, $2,500 fine and have his fight license in Texas revoked. MMA Fighting confirmed an initial report by MMAJunkie.com. As I mentioned, Slice is supposed to fight James Thompson July 16th in London, and that's pretty much it. Got that 90-day PED suspension in Texas are far less severe than in most of the country and North America. 90-day suspension with a fine up to $5,000 for a first-time offender. As part of the settlement agreement, Dave wrote, Slice waived his right to a hearing before the board. So that's that. He'll be free to fight on July 16th. Pretty crazy stuff going on in Texas. And I also wanted to pass along the news that Junior Dos Santos underwent a shoulder procedure. You can read about that on MMAfighting.com. So that's going to sideline him for a little bit. And also maybe good news for Alistair Overeem, who did beat JDS, but JDS coming off that big win over Ben Rothwell. Interesting times at heavyweight. That will sideline him for a little bit. Going to be interesting to see if Overeem can win on Sunday. What are the odds there for that, by the way? Yeah, Overeem's a minus 211. Arlovsky a plus 195. Sounds about right. Struve a favorite over Bigfoot Silva. Gunnar Nelson. Wow, Gunnar Nelson an underdog. Interesting. Gunnar Nelson plus 160 against Albert Tumanov minus 165. That's kind of interesting. Any other ones? Chris Wade, an underdog. I love that fight. Chris Wade versus Rustam Khabilov. Chris Wade, a slight underdog against Rustam Khabilov. John Tuck, slight underdog as well against Nick Hines. Some close ones here. Wow. Kyoji Horiguchi, a huge favorite against Neil Seery. Kyoji Horiguchi, minus 485, and Neil Seery plus 415. That's interesting as well. Dominic Waters, an underdog against Leon Edwards. That's a fun fight. Dominic Waters plus 206, Edwards minus 229. Wow, how about that one? Anyone, any of my friends in Ireland taking a flyer on Neil Seery? And also want to remind you that the UFC is back on Sunday. It was a relatively quiet weekend in MMA this past weekend. Titan had an event. But it's a big one coming up for women's MMA on Friday, May 6th. Angela Lee, who's 5-0 in one championship, she will be fighting Mei Yamaguchi for their inaugural atomweight title, 105-pound title. That's a big fight for women's MMA, and she has become somewhat of a rising star, especially in Asia. They are really backing her. One championship, so that's one to look out for Friday morning. Also, Hadra Gracie competing on that card, so look out for that. And then Invicta is back on Saturday. They get the stage to themselves on May 7th, and Tanya Evinger is defending her bantamweight title against Colleen Schneider. Also, Livia Renata Souza will be defending her title against Angela Hill, the 115-pound division. And another solid card from Invicta. Mizuki Inoue fighting on the card. Charmaine Tweet on the card as well. Megan Anderson against Amanda Bell. That's a fun one. So another, it's all, not the deepest card of all time, but always interesting stuff out of Invicta FC. All right, I am done. You can hit my music. It was good to let my hair down a little bit on today's show. Not as stacked as far as guests are concerned, but I sometimes it's nice to just talk to all of you, sort of. Not a direct communication, if you will, but hey, look at this, we're ending on time. They always get mad at me for going over our 4:30 slot. I'm ending on time here. Last couple of weeks I've been going way over. Here we are doing the damn thing on time. How about that? Again, all the best to Jordan Parsons. I tried to check in with Glenn Robinson, but unfortunately no update to provide as of right now. So all we can say is we wish him the best and hope that he makes a speedy recovery. What will happen this week in the world of mixed martial arts? After that 200 announcement, Good Morning America, all that stuff, it got a little quiet, which was nice. I will not lie. Will things ramp up? Certainly the UFC schedule ramps up beginning this Sunday, so stay tuned for that. We'll be back on Monday to recap everything, and of course the MMA Beat, get them while they're hot. The t-shirts right over there is back Thursday as well. Want to thank everyone who stopped by today. Want to thank everyone who tuned into today's show. Thank you very much to James Vick. All the best to him, UFC 199. Thank you very much, Gunnar Nelson, Neil Magny, Tiffany Van Soest. Thank you very much to Joanne Calderwood. And thank you very much to Chuck Mindenhall for filling in. Great stuff, as always, from him. Back next week, same time and place. Totally say peace. I'm out of here.